Good evening. My name is Bob Green. Tonight is Thursday, April 9th. It is now 6:20 p.m. Town Hall, North Reading, Massachusetts. We're adjourning our gathering to commence the deliberations in the matter of 20 Elm Street, the project submitted and now under consideration by the board. For purposes of quorum, myself, Bob Green, Brendan Riley, and Michelle Bodian are attending for purposes of the deliberation by the board, as well as for the record, Kathy Morgan, secretary to the building department, and town council George Bucci of KP Law. Thank you all for coming. So since the close of the public hearing, there's been a draft submitted to the board as well as to the attention of the applicant by council George Bucci, and we'll spend some time, I expect, this evening discussing that. One order of business, the minutes from our final public hearing meeting in this matter was held on March 4th. The minutes have not been entered into the record. I've had a chance to review the minutes. I found them to be comprehensive and reflective of the conversation that was generated at the meeting. I'd like to see if anybody would like to bring a motion to enter the minutes formally on the record.
I move to enter the meeting minutes.
Thank you. So with that, all in favor of entering the Zoning Board of Appeals minutes from March 4th, 2026?
Brendan Riley, aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Michelle. Bob Green, aye. It's a very interesting way in which business is done. This is all attendant to 40B. To the voting board members, myself, Michelle, Brendan, I liken this very much to almost being foreman of a jury. And you always ask yourself, and I never sat on a jury, smart choices by attorneys not to put one on. It's an interesting question that how do you start this? And so just before we ask questions of George in particular with regard to the process, any thoughts on the application? So it's an easy yes or no. And the interesting thing about that yes or no is that the yes can be made with considerations, specifically conditions. So just thoughts across from each of you, where you stand on the application at this time.
Do you want to talk? I can talk.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, in theory. I want to understand how this yes with conditions interplays with the ongoing litigation. That's an open question for me that I want to get solved before diving too far into the yes with conditions. But I appreciate all of the work that's been done to accommodate the concerns and the rejiggering and the shuffling and all of that. So yes, in theory, but I have a lot of questions.
I would say yes with conditions. We have an interesting point about the current litigation. I didn't think of that, but I'm curious to see how that does play into this situation.
So, well, you know, I've made no hiding of the fact that I was opposed to the plan. I don't think it's right. But at the same time, but for the 40B, the application pursuant to 40B, that changes just the role that the Board of Appeals takes, our board takes in this matter. And what's all the more interesting about this matter for me personally, but obviously most especially as being a voting member on the board, I've consistently asked all of the, in particular the peer review individuals involved in the peer review, their thoughts on the project. And by and large, there's been a pretty consistent consensus that the applicant has submitted and checked all the boxes. And there's nothing that would prevent, practically, assuming all things remain understandable. Within the project design and the scope, they have pretty much submitted a fairly reasonable plan project. And that doesn't say that it shouldn't be granted with conditions, but I can't find a reason to deny that I believe would merit review, survive review, or and make review. Now, I could be wrong on that. And by review, obviously, I'm talking about the same thing that both have referenced, which is further litigation in the matter. So, but on its face, I believe that it should be approved, but with conditions. And I think that that's where the task that's really before this board lies, in that we make sure that whatever we can control in this project, and again, controls that are both for the benefit of the community, but inherently not only for the guidelines for the developer, but also those that will be living in the project at 20 Elm. We're working for the people that don't live in North Reading yet, and I think that that should never be lost on anybody who has taken an interest or has an interest or will have an interest in 20 Elm Street. So I think that's that's a fair statement. So, George, good evening. I'd like to turn the conversation to you and just give some thoughts to the board on the scope of really this entire project, where it sits right now, but also there's also the thought of where it could go, because I know that the idea of further appeal of the litigation matter, or will that ever, what's to become of that, if it is anything, should be understood by the board as best you might be able to tell us.
So good evening again, Mr. Chair, members of the board. I'm George Pucci from KP Law. So a couple of things about the decision before you, just so the public knows too. I presented, and I apologize for all the reschedulings and getting this to you so late. I finally got a draft decision to you. I forget when I got it to you. That was presented to you, for your information purposes, so you could read it and think about it in advance of this meeting tonight to deliberate on it, so that you don't have to go through it in painstaking detail. You kind of know issues to me beforehand, if any. We have some changes that were on there, some stuff from the record, and one of your associate members, I think, sent an email with some bullet point comments on it that all looked reasonable to me to make some revisions on the draft. So if you end up wanting to go forward with this decision, you could either schedule another deliberation session, or you could vote it, subject to revisions that are discussed tonight, or do a combination of the two. Vote it subject to revisions, and then schedule maybe one more meeting to look at it in final. Before I get to the safe harbor issue and the litigation, I should say, this decision is not, piece of poetry, and doesn't come up with a whole heck of a lot of things that didn't come out of this hearing process. So as Bob had pointed out earlier, the peer review process ended up with the peer reviewers being satisfied with the responses that were provided by the applicant. So basically, there's no surprises really in the conditions of approval that are in this permit. You're not cutting the number of units, you're not moving anything around, you're allowing the subdivision, issues like that. Getting to the safe harbor issue, in terms of litigation, first of all, it's good to kind of look at the universe of litigation. So either denial of the permit or an approval with conditions, if the applicant is dissatisfied with the conditions, are appealable by the applicant, the developer, to the Housing Appeals Committee, where they can either seek to overturn a denial decision or they can seek to overturn conditions of the permit. And usually what happens in those types of appeals is they'll appeal conditions in the aggregate. So there'll be a number of conditions that they appeal to the HAC and they'll be looking for modifications through that process. That's one potential piece of litigation, and that's the applicant's avenue of appeal. I'd be somewhat surprised if there was an appeal of this because, again, there's no surprises really in the permit. They were conditions that were discussed during the public hearing and pretty much the back and forth between the peer reviewers and ultimately with the approval plans that are before you. But that would be one avenue of appeal. Another avenue of appeal is if you go ahead with an approval with conditions, third parties have the right to appeal that. So they would have the right to appeal your decision to court. And that would be like your typical zoning appeal, 48, Section 17 appeal. They'd have to file that, after it's filed with the town clerk's office, and they could pursue that appeal. They would not have standing, in my opinion, to appeal that safe harbor issue. So if there were a third-party appeal of an approval with conditions, that would be substantive, that they're going to be harmed by the project and they have particularized harm that isn't felt by the community at large, and they could pursue those claims in court. So that's another avenue. Your avenue on the safe harbor issue, and I described this, but definitely we didn't talk through what an appeal would look like. I had said at the beginning of this process that when the HAC ruled against you on the safe harbor issue, that was not immediately appealable to court. You have to go through the administrative process on the remand public hearing before that issue would become ripe for adjudication. One thing I didn't say, and I'll say it flat out to you, because I thought it might have been understood, is that you would have to deny the permit, in my opinion, if you're going to then appeal that safe harbor issue. So I want to be very clear about that. If you think about it, how can you be appealing something that you approved? So if you wanted to appeal the safe harbor issue, in my opinion, you'd have to deny the permit. You couldn't issue an order of, an approval with conditions. You'd have to deny it, and then that process would go forward. You'd be able to exercise that appeal. An approval with conditions, again, is not going to be subject to your own appeal or the town's appeal or any of those related entities. The only possible appeals would be an appeal by the developer to the Housing Appeals Committee or a third-party appeal, abutters or otherwise, to court of the decision under 48 Section 17. So if you do an approval with conditions, that's it for the zoning board. No avenue of appeal, and the town can't appeal either. Like the select board couldn't come in and say, oh, well, we're interested in litigating the safe harbor issue further. So that would be precluded by approval of conditions. I did put, and again, I drafted this for your deliberations. I'm not saying this is how you have to rule, but I put paragraphs in under the applicable law just to be clear. I made findings in that regard that you felt that an approval with conditions was more appropriate under the circumstances, and I gave the reasoning for that in the decision. we can modify that, or you can go back on it entirely. But that was the reason I put that in there, so that nobody is misled that if you do an approval with conditions, that safe harbor issue is over. One thing I don't feel great about, but I am willing to do it in this circumstance. I don't like to talk about the potential resolution or outcome of a lawsuit, in an open session. That would be something that would be appropriate for executive session to discuss pending litigation. But what I will say are a couple of things that are not, they're not a mystery. So I'll put it out there to you. Your safe harbor appeal, or your safe harbor declaration several years ago was based on the fact that you got a finding from Mass GIS that definitely supported the 1.5% GLAM calculation under the guidelines then in effect. No doubt about it, you were 100% correct to declare a safe harbor under those guidelines at the time, and the finding that you got from the state on a significant amount of acreage that was favorable to you in that calculation. Then when the litigation went forward with HAC, they found a number of reasons to find against you. Number one, they looked at it from the GIS analysis. They found against you on those issues. And then what happened during the course of the HAC proceeding, the GLAM guidelines by which they interpret these regulations concerning 1.5% land area were amended, and they addressed the exact situation that you had on appeal. So they were amended pretty much. You didn't have much of a chance if those were in effect at the time you made the declaration. So, punchline being, you ended up losing that appeal with HAC, and then it got remanded to you. So a couple of things that could happen that, again, I don't want to get into, percentage of chance of success or the plus and minuses of litigation in an open session. But what I will say is there is risk involved in taking the course of denying under the safe harbor issue and then going ahead to litigation on that. First of all, you run the risk that if you don't prevail on that, then you're just subject to HAC conditions, which are much less extensive than the conditions of approval that you have here. When HAC overturns a board, number one, they don't remand it. I'm talking about overturning your actual substantive decision. They won't remand it to you for further proceedings. They will order issuance of the permit within 30 days. And if you don't issue it, their decision will serve as a permit. And their conditions consist always of about 3 or 4 boilerplate conditions on the end of their decision. Things like it shall comply with state and federal law, and the building inspector will grant the permit, and they won't be unreasonably delayed, and it will be approved in accordance with their plan. So it's very bare bones, the conditions that you end up there with. The other potential risk is you end up with a worse project. You have the possibility of a developer saying, well, okay, now my project, I'm going to add 100 units or whatever they might come up with. So you're also subject to that. You're losing the certainty of what you've got for the project before you. The other possible outcome that could happen is, say you win the lawsuit and the court says, yeah, it was arbitrary and capricious for them to amend the guidelines during your litigation. Well, you're still stuck with the new guidelines. So either something could relate back to the original application that they're still locked in, that they're an eligible 40B applicant, and then they get the new guidelines. Or you could win the case, and the next day the applicant could refile, and then you don't have the safe harbor available anymore because you get the new guidelines. So, and I'm not revealing anything to the applicant by this, giving away anything in public. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that the town is not in safe harbor now. Even if you won the litigation, they can refile. You either get this project or something worse, and you have the new amended GLAM guidelines that would then apply to that application. So there's a potential risk for going forward, with that type of course of action. And I'm not advocating anything one way or another, I'm just laying that out there for you. And one thing I will say too, I don't get into policy considerations, obviously I'm just your counsel and I'm not a board member, but there's a modicum of good faith here involved too, is I was surprised that after the fact, the question had arisen that, well, we could still appeal the safe harbor even if we did the approval with conditions. I was surprised by that because you've had a pretty lengthy process and a detailed process with the applicant. They funded the peer review. There were no disputes in that regard. They responded to the peer review. You had robust discussions concerning the project and what they did with it. And it's not the type of, it didn't have the tenor, the back and forth and the give and take during the remand public hearing that had the tenor of, okay, well, we're just going to hear this thing and run it out and then we're going to assert the safe harbor. That was never discussed during the public hearing. And I'm not saying that you were legally obligated to discuss it, but it appeared to be a good faith process going on between the applicant and their representatives, your peer reviewers, town departments, you all on the board, that we're going more toward substantively addressing this project. So I just kind of wanted to throw that out there. This board, everyone in the town of North Reading has always impressed me, and it's never been a situation where, I've had an inkling that my client is acting in bad faith. And again, you weren't legally obligated to sort of give them a heads up that when the process is over, you're going to go ahead and deny the project and pursue the safe harbor appeal. But it certainly wasn't my impression that that's where you were headed with it. So I just put that out there. It doesn't mean anything again. We weren't legally obligated to raise it, but it does raise an issue that, gee, it would have been nice before we spent all this money trying to respond and come up with reasonable conditions if we had known that was going to be the result. And I don't represent developers, so I'm not making their case for them, but just kind of speaking straightforwardly about it. It was never part of this process that, during the public hearing when we tried to when you tried to work out, potential conditions of approval. So that's kind of a mouthful. I'm happy to answer further questions on it, but that's where we are at on that issue.
Have we heard from the select board anything related to their thoughts? And the context of my question is we're standing in the place of everyone and everything. I didn't live in this town back then. I don't have the full history context. I was not involved in the litigation. I'm not saying we don't make a decision here, but do we have any additional context? Do you have any additional context to add related to how the larger boards, commissions, departments feel about waiving safe harbor?
Okay. Any questions as well?
I think that they've had ample time to voice, meaning the board, select board, to voice their concerns regarding safe harbor. We've been discussing this for months and months now. And to your point, bringing up your thoughts regarding it, and if we were to appeal, the likelihood of us winning that appeal, just then on the other side, I would tend to agree with you on those points. And the fact that we've deliberated this and spent a tremendous amount of time and everyone else's time to go back and do that now would be, in better words, just wrong on our part. That's just my 2 cents on it. I wasn't here before, I wasn't on the board before when this was discussed, but I think at the time we had every right, as you stated, to file that appeal based on what we saw as the facts. Those facts have now since changed, the goalpost has been moved, and now here we are.
You're in a tougher place than I am because I was a hero to the project opponents when I was vigorously litigating it.
Sure.
And now I know I am not the favorite for the people who are opposed to the project, to give you this advice. But that it is what it is. And I'm not saying that you wouldn't necessarily prevail in the litigation. I'm just saying, first of all, the courts defer to HAC on rulings like that, and they did. HAC is a very skilled entity, and they ruled against you on the under the amended land guidelines, but they also had an entirely independent grounds that they spent 30 pages on to justify it otherwise. So that's what you would hear in a court action. So courts tend to defer to them, don't tend to, they do, especially in the 40B context. They can defer to HAC's interpretations of the comprehensive permit regulations. So you have that. And again, even assuming you prevailed, there's nothing stopping the applicant from filing the exact same application or a worse one. So then you're, if you had a big project that had come in the meantime and you were in safe harbor otherwise, might be a different story. But again, that wasn't really the tenor of any of this. And I would point out, I know that people that, and if I lived there, I quite frankly would rather not have this project myself. If I was a resident in town and I was in the vicinity of this, I would rather have, trees than 200-unit development. So it's perfectly understandable. But, from the town's perspective too, you do get in safe harbor because you get 100% of the units. This is a rental project. So you would be in safe harbor if these units are approved and they would be immediately eligible for the SHI. So you would have, the town would achieve safe harbor as a result of this project. I think that's probably little comfort to abutters to the project who may be opposed to it. But, again, first of all, you've tried, the decision and the peer review and the town department comments have tried to condition this in an appropriate way to properly protect local concerns, including concerns of the abutters. And ultimately, if they're dissatisfied about that, I know no one wants to take on litigation that's expensive, but you're not precluding any third party from appealing the permit in the event that you grant it. So that's important to realize too.
So all litigation is speculative, and just moving through what you just said. So if a third party wanted to, the last thing, if I was advising somebody who was going after, if I was a direct abutter, I would leave it. Safe harbor is not going to get you where you want to go. You've got to be able to show the harm that you, that's all in my lifetime, in my time, decisions in civil dispositions, it's always been a question of harm. So if you were in a butter and you had a project that suddenly created a problem with your well, and that's been raised in conversation here, that remedy is one that a court would probably be open to because you're just going there. But as far as the safe harbor,
well, the safe harbor is
it'll be
legally is not available to them.
Right, so it isn't. So, I mean, so to protect or try to swerve this because of safe harbor, look, I think Brendan put it right. Blam, again, an administrative body, judge, administrative court, they move the goalposts. So I think the way I see it is, even if the town won, the application would just go, and it would go under the new guidelines, and there'd be no safe harbor. So we would be not deja vu all over again, but very much like that. And in the worst case scenario, the denial goes through, and it all falls into JC, and they just put in boilerplate, for lack of a better way of thinking of it, justifiably on their part, and we're left with no ability to, as best we can, put in conditions that address what has been and always has been my single biggest concern. And it's always been my disagreement with the Chapter 40B, which is what happens not now, not 3 years from now, what happens 10 years from now. And I'm not just throwing that out as just something some guy wants to say. I lived in a city and saw these projects deteriorate. Now, that was decades ago. I'm older than I look. And they're done differently now. And I took a great deal of confidence from Eric Carlson and in the peer review team that said, look, if this goes down the way they think it will, it's pretty solid. I have to take the developer, much like we do anybody who comes before us, at their word. And let's face it, they've held all the cards. I mean, 40B is just, you know, it's a weight. It's been a weight on all our shoulders, and it's a weight that this town has had to bear and will continue to bear, not just this one, but those that exist within it. But it's true of all developments. And I'm not trying to paint with a broad brush. I genuinely have looked at all of the submissions throughout this, and quite frankly, I am searching for now ways to best, and I'm hoping to achieve within our this deliberation, ways to best protect the people that are most immediate to this. That really is the only thing that I am truly going to champion, besides the fact that everything we do is for the benefit of the town, or the well-being of the town. And I do this sincerely. I'm not, look, I may know, if anybody knows, I all but told the developer, I'm not in favor of your project, me personally, but in the role that we hold here. So as far as the safe harbor, have I got it right? Even if the town were to pursue it, we deny, the town were to pursue it, and prevail, it would just, okay, fine. Some application will just be resubmitted because we're not within that safe harbor under the new plan, right? And we would be, once again, visited by an application of some sort from somewhere, some in this town.
Yeah, I mean,
that could put one together. And obviously, this is the most likely because they've already carved it out.
yeah. Or you could I have another client that will remain nameless, and their safe harbor under 2-year certification of approved housing production plan expired because building permits didn't issue. And within a month of that, they got 3 new 40B applications. So, yeah, you would be subject to their application and anybody else who wants to come in, because you're not under safe harbor at all at that point. So you would be facing this applicant, whatever they want to do with this project, whether or not that included adding units to the project, and you'd also be subject to other 40B applications. And I'm not doom and gloom. I'm just telling it like it is. It's a practical situation. And again, this was a process that, it was a fairly collaborative process that he went through with the peer reviewers and the applicant in this case.
Well, I think to that point, I think the board understood that, had an inkling of it. We understood that, the denial could further the litigation. But at the same time, the original application, the original 40B went before a board that doesn't exist anymore, like none of the members. So we gave it a fair chance. And I think that speaks to, the integrity of the board. You can tell, when asked by people in the community, I answered them as a resident and as, in theory, I guess, the chair. During the public hearing and before that, look, not in favor of it, but you have to understand the law and the law controls. And this is difficult for everybody. It's, it's hard to just wrap your head around it, especially after everybody thinks, oh, we won, so to speak. No, no, they didn't. They just prevailed in the moment and just furthered the process along. So I don't think there's much more to say. As far as I see it, denial for the purposes of pursuing the litigation has no merit on the theory of if the end game is to be achieved is to stop this development. Because that's the only thing it would stop if all of those things fell into place, and it would only be a momentary stop, and they would come right back. As far as Michelle asking, do I know what the rest of the Board of Selectmen want to do, or I can recall Selectman Rigucci at the very beginning of this. He was the liaison to the board at the time.
Vincenzo?
Vincenzo, I'm sorry.
I always call him Vincenzo. I forget his last name. So.
Yeah. This was well after the term before this, and he didn't seem to believe that it was hoped for, or that the town would be looking to further pursue it. Because I think he might have had a better idea at that time of what you just expressed, which was...
Yeah, I mean, this is an important conversation for you to have, and I appreciate you raising it with me, because the worst thing, two things that lawyers look out for is, number one, a statute of limitations, and also, so never blow a statute of limitations and never have your client get surprised. And
Yeah,
I'm glad you raised
we never
it.
had this conversation.
Yeah.
We just wanted to have the conversation.
It would have been the worst thing in the world for you to have been surprised after the fact, and anybody else following along be surprised.
Here's a question.
As a result of that. So I'm glad you raised it. And again, you're not locked into anything. I'm just laying it out there for you.
Maybe I can focus this. The pursuit of the litigation, to me, is over here. And what we're doing right now is here. In other words, we're going through the application. For purposes, it would appear that if we can't achieve a successful outcome in terms of litigation, are you still inclined to deny? Because I don't think we're going to succeed in litigation, so I see no merit in denying. That's me.
We talked about the litigation 8 months ago and then 6 months ago for like 3 minutes. My goal was, if we're waiving a possible remedy, we should just have the conversation as a board and all be
Yes.
aligned. We're good with it. I would love to get us into safe harbor under the existing guidelines. I agree, the applicant has been very cooperative. To me, I'm personally trying to solve for the one street, the two abutters that have continued to show up during the process and work on conditions, but we've never, the three of us, all had this conversation. So I was just trying to have
But
the conversation.
if the town can't achieve safe harbor after denial, litigation, and safe harbor doesn't get achieved,
No, then there'll be no point for any of it. But I'm agreeing with you.
would you then say, geez, if I'd known if that's how it's going to end, then I'm not inclined to deny, I'm more inclined to approve with conditions? It's a tough question, so
I don't know. I mean, I think the ultimate outcome and everything that's been consistent, us taking the reins and making an affirmative decision, is better than all of the possible unknowns, whether it's Superior Court or...
Well, I mean,
So
in the halls of justice, the best justices in the hall.
So I
That's
am...
because you get to kind of control.
Yeah, I am comfortable moving forward with a conditioned approval. I just wanted to make sure all three of us have thought it through or are on board, because we hadn't talked about safe harbor.
And that's my point about avoiding surprises. That's why I'm glad you raised the issue, because that would have been really bad. if you were misled on that and didn't go forward with this knowingly. So I'm glad you asked that, and I'm glad we cleared that up. And it, you know, hindsight's 20/20. I'm still, as I'm sitting here today, I'm not sure if 6 months ago or 8 months ago I would have said you had to deny it. So, because it's sort of, I guess it's so ingrained in my head that, of course, you would have to deny the permit if you're going to pursue that issue. But I apologize if I wasn't very clear about that at the beginning, because I do know I addressed the safe harbor issue at the beginning of your process. So I apologize if, you know, if I left it something unclear with you.
So do you consider the question of pursuing the safe harbor separate from the deliberation process that we're involved in right now?
Yeah, because why would you, if you wanted to deny and go ahead, why deliberate on the conditions?
For purposes of 40B and not violating that, which is always, that's the monkey on my shoulder. I'm always looking at it as, don't crack that open. Like, even after the fact, offering the applicant a chance to say, hey, look, you guys stepped outside the lines, and because you haven't stepped outside the line, we're going to ask for relief that you won't be able to reverse upon appeal of conditions or whatever. But if the question of pursuing the litigation is outside of the deliberation on the project after public hearing, is there anything to stop us from asking the Board of Selectmen directly if they want to pursue safe harbor?
Yeah, I think you're kind of...
Or is that a catch-22?
Well, it would sort of be, your public hearing is closed, really, so...
But I consider it a separate issue from all the matters before us on the public
Yeah, but it
hearing application.
goes to, you know, what you're doing on it.
Just to the merits if we're
Yeah.
approving or
Yeah.
denying, yeah.
Yeah, I would...
Right, but
I mean, Vincenzo knew about it after the fact when it got raised.
But with the close of public hearing, can that question be asked now? And not violate?
I mean, they could be... They really shouldn't be weighing in to your decision now that you're in deliberations.
I'm not saying they should, but I'm asking, is it such a unicorn of a situation that you'd say, well, it is separate? Because I'm ready to discuss the waiver requests and the conditions and the draft that you have provided to us.
But if they weigh in and say they really care, then we'd be persuaded to issue the denial, so then it would be deliberative, so I
It
don't...
would be similar to saying to a resident, well, I want to see what this resident really thinks, and then, you know, it's sort of the same thing. Your public hearing is closed, it's not, and it isn't separate because it's going to the issue of if you want to deny or not.
Sure.
So, you know, I would recommend you, my recommendation would be do either one. You either decide tonight, okay, we've thought about it, we've been advised, we're going to go ahead with the approval with conditions, talk about the conditions, or I'm not convinced, I don't feel comfortable, I'm going to deny it, and on the safe harbor issue. Not to delay conversation on it, you know, pending further input. I wouldn't do that.
I choose door number one.
Excuse me?
I choose door number one to move into discussing the conditions.
Now we're referencing 70s television. You know, based upon the original theory, there was a tiger behind one of those doors. I mean,
Really?
you know the history of...
No, before my
Let's make a
time.
deal.
Yeah, you understand that it's all based upon an Indian tale. Sorry. Bad trivia pursuit.
I guess I'd have to, just, again, I'm the devil's advocate here, putting myself in the applicant's shoes, other side of the table here. If we were to pursue that, to your point, it goes through, another applicant's going to come back along because, again, they moved the goalpost, they're gonna be back in the same situation again. We don't have safe harbor, it's going to go through. They've wasted a tremendous amount of money, tremendous amount of everyone's time here, and we're gonna have to go through that whole process again. If I were them and litigating that point, I'd be furious. I would think anyone else's shoes would take that into account, into consideration. So to me, it just seems almost underhanded, if you will, at this point, because we've had the opportunity to do that before we got here and got to this point and went through this whole process. Yeah, I would, to your point, choose door number one.
I agree. I mean, not to that, I just think, look, ultimately, something's going to get built here, and it's going to come under an application pursuant to 40B, because there's nothing that we haven't, that the town, North Reading hasn't addressed the being under the percentage, and nothing is going to present timely enough that could get the town there. And so be it. And again, we can take some, like I said before, yeah, it's not what everybody there, or maybe everybody wants, especially those that are immediately or generally affected by it. But the peer review that we engaged said that, you know, it's a pretty, I can't believe these words are going. It's a pretty modest 200-unit development for a town that has no public transportation and no direct sewer. Modest. I mean, so
Do we want to jump into some of the conditions?
So going through, George submitted a, comprehensive permit. He gave us a draft, and much like it sets out the procedural history. So with the only change that will be made is paragraph 22, which will be a change of dates and any grammatical corrections.
There were a few corrections of the acreage on the paragraph 5 on procedural history on the subdivision plan.
So I'm looking at the version that was the more revised of the two.
I spelled your name wrong, which I apologize for. Okay, it was just pointed out to me. There's no E in green.
Well, I hope when they're putting my image up in effigy, they get it right.
So I sent you, some further revisions based on stuff in the record and that's been coming in. Danielle was helpful, talked to the building commissioner. We tightened up some of the language on the waivers. There was a substantive, actually, there was a substantive addition on the, because this one's important, would be hours of construction.
Yeah, that was section, I've been on that, section B, item 7D.
Yeah.
Critical missing data. It's a placeholder, so we have to be filled out
Well,
before.
you should have a
Updated
red
version.
line.
Oh.
This has it.
Okay.
And
So,
again,
all right, so let's look at it. The first section, procedural history, there's just been, whatever edits were made, were just to tighten it up. We need to change the date because it's got a hearing decision date of April 9th, which is certainly not going to be likely.
yeah.
But that's just, I'm just trying to move through the document.
Yeah, usually sometimes chairs will kind of, they'll, if there's any, Okay, I'm up to page 8. Does anybody have any questions or comments before that? And they'll say it. And then you're like, okay, I'm up to
Okay.
page 16.
Well, I mean, I'm okay with section 1, except for 22, which obviously has to get changed because it's got dates.
And I just want to make sure, though, everybody has the latest version.
Yeah, Kathy handed out the red
Yeah.
line.
Okay.
Was there another version after you sent it along with this app? Right, no, I understand that it says April. I marked them version 1, what version 1.1. I'm going to continue to do that until I get to...
Do you have the one that, paragraph 5 on the very first page, changes the acreage on the A&R?
Yes.
All right.
13.4.
I got 13.29 acres
Good,
and
so you got
11.43
You got the right
acres.
version.
I got the most recent. I just wanted to be sure there wasn't a third one.
Okay. No.
In section 1, I thought it was relevant to add that we tagged along to the Concom walk, if we're just laying out the facts.
So we did a walkthrough of the property. You want that to be...
Do you know when that was?
I might have it in my calendar.
It's in my calendar.
Yeah, hold on.
It was probably June, July.
No, it was...
No, it was in the fall.
It was cold.
I had a
It was cold.
Friendsgiving that day. Hold
It was
on.
before Thanksgiving, wasn't it?
Yeah, I was having my Friendsgiving and doing a bounce up. It was the 15th. Yeah, November 15th.
Conservation Commission was with you at that?
Yeah, I was there,
Yeah.
and the developer as well.
There's an undetermined voice in my head telling me that it was November 15th. So that should be just noted for the commencement of the
Just like
public hearing.
everyone to know we showed up and saw it.
Yeah.
Okay, so as far as governing law, so this is where, you know, I know that everybody complains about legalese. So in effect, Section 2 governing law is a good place to capture the board's understanding of the practical, not just the actual legal process. In short, you know, the merits of appeal. I know it's speculative. I mean, you can't say that what will happen until it happens. It's not fair. But, you know, changes to the guidelines, rather than deny the project on these grounds and proceed with a superior court action appealing the AJC's prior ruling, the board finds that the better course is to approve the permit with conditions which will develop during the remand hearing and which will enable the board to maintain local control over issues of local concern. Perfectly stated. Is there somewhere to put within that why the board made that measure? Because I think that I understand it. I think I would hope that everybody in this room now discussing this understands it. But this, you know, if we're going to, you know, does anybody feel that that should be simply stated? Or simpler, more simply stated? Or does that...
Yeah, I mean, I try my best not to write in legalese.
Okay.
That was my best effort at
Sure.
making it simple and explainable, but I'm, you know, obviously it's your decision, so I'm open to either if you wanted to try to revise it yourself, or if you want to suggest how I can revise it further for you.
Why don't we sit on that?
You know, and
for now?
I should say too, I didn't get a chance to address this with you. When I do a decision, sometimes comprehensive permit decisions can be 50 or 60 pages. The problem when they get too long is sometimes they're very confusing. You know, you have a defined term one way on page 49 and it's a little different on page 23. You're not really sure what it is. So when all is said and done, sometimes the governing law section is quite a bit longer in other permits that I've seen, but you you don't need to restate things like that they're an eligible applicant under the project eligibility letter. In other words, you don't have to restate all that governing law. So I try to make it as short and sweet as possible on these issues, and I try to have defined terms that then, you can look at as a checklist. So you get your approved plans, and then later there will be and another component of the post-permitting process will be final plans and what, requirements pertain to different ones there. So I should just kind of give you that context. If you're free to tweak it however you want, but I try to make them as short as they can be, because I find that the longer they are, causes confusion and issues and things like that later on, especially when a building commissioner is trying to figure out what it is that he's trying to confirm. So that goes kind of to the legalese. I tried to write it. I obviously failed because I tried to write it without
No. Don't. What I'm trying to, this will get posted, okay?
Yeah.
And when it first showed up in my mailbox, I was like, oh, I'll set aside like an hour. And it wasn't that way, which is great. But we've been involved in this from jump. So it's an easier read, for us than it might be for Mary Jones, who lives on, Angel Road, right? Is there any merit to trying to capture a very simple statement to Mary Jones or whomever that, the board basically, look, it would have gone this way. Is there a simple summary of the conversation we just spent 20 plus minutes on? And is there any merit to even trying? Because would that even be,
I don't think
read it 100 times and still not get
I
it?
don't think Joe Schmo is reading this. I think after this is done, we could ask the Board of Selectmen or put one sentence on the website separately and independent. I don't think it needs to be within, I think you might be,
Overthinking it.
well, I was going to say, you strike me as someone who would actually pick this up and read it as a general townsfolk. I don't think most folks are actually going to be poring
No,
over.
but if they suddenly remember that, oh my gosh, I really never really wanted that to happen, why are they letting it happen?
I wouldn't know to look within the permit to expect to
Okay.
find the answer.
Yeah, okay. It is in there, absolutely, okay.
And I had a note on,
Wait, sorry, can we jump back to the first page? 13.29 plus 11.43 equal 24.72. And we say it's 24.2 plus or minus, doesn't matter.
You came up with 24 what?
0.72.
So it would be 24.7
Plus or minus.
Yeah, I think it does. I think
It does,
Okay.
yeah.
It's a sad day when I have to do math, everybody.
And then the other, point that I was going to bring up, section D, item 7, the change to the Lynn Street and the way the water's looping in. Should we be calling out a parcel and map number to avoid ambiguity?
You could, yeah.
I think it just makes sense.
Yeah. Where are you? What page?
Section D, item 7C.
Yeah.
See.
Yeah.
Project line shall be looped, well, you just cross that out. Town parcel 2 Lynn Street, we should note the assessor's map and lot.
On the thing of the water line. It's on page 10.
I'm just thinking how we normally would call it out in a regular board meeting if someone wanted chickens.
All right.
And that's the-
He's jumping ahead.
I was just jumping ahead, I was going through my notes that I had on my phone to make sure I didn't, section 7, yeah,
Okay,
D7C.
gotcha.
Okay, so other than the change to the acreage percentages, and again, item 22 in procedural history, which has to be changed because of dates, obviously, April 9th. We move through governing law, which I think the brevity of it but it speaks to the issue underlying a concern, which might be, why are they surrendering? Thoughts of pursuing this further in Superior Court. That's fine. So now we go to findings of fact. They all seem rather straightforward.
For 2, it's obviously an anticipated easement, because, again, you don't
Right,
have...
so there's a reference someplace else in here about achieving that easement, or was...
I mean, they haven't severed the lots yet, so there's no easement to grant yet, so I don't know if we just say it's anticipated, or somehow forward-looking that... there'll be-
Conditional
Okay,
upon
so
approval, right?
findings of fact. Access to the project shall be via the existing driveway to Teresa's, period.
Anticipated easement?
Right, so it's kind of language that needs to be said here, is that this grant of access so, again, they haven't, I know that I can't tell you right off the top of my head, but there's some condition within here that says they will get an easement.
Yeah, later on, they have to produce the recorded version before the...
Right. So wouldn't it be appropriate to say,
As described.
access to the property subject to the subject shall be via the existing driveway, same access, said subject to grant of easements, period, see section below. Follow?
Yeah.
Like, not like, I hate saying that. Effectively stating how you'll access, but again, that access is still really to be determined, even though it has been. Or is it just finding a fact?
Yeah.
That the only way to get into the project will be via the existing driveway to Teresa's, period?
Access to the project shall be via the existing driveway to Teresa's, yes.
I mean, that's just, on its face, that's a straight, flat fact. Now, how they get that access, that's on them,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
think
I like
we
the
have to-
period.
I'm good with that.
What's that?
I'm good with just a period.
I started my legal career doing the periods. Everything is referenced, and it's exhaustive, but it drives my wife crazy.
It's like Mylars and gets it recorded. But is she going to be doing that portion? Are we going to do it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm open to suggestions if Daniel wanted to tighten up the language a little bit on the A&R. I mean,
Did you hear what I
typically they'll
said,
do it
Daniel?
in the...
I said where the zoning board is acting as the CPC would usually act in an A&R, and you get the Mylars, you have them recorded. Would we be doing that? Would you be doing that?
So we don't usually send them in for recording, we ask the applicant to record, and I believe the registry no longer requires Mylar, they can just be paper plans, but we would need to, I think, have a signed plan that shows the subdivision that was reportable. I don't
By the
think
way,
that
do you have
has
someplace to
take
be at a
place
certain
before.
time tonight?
I'm good.
Probably, but
I'm
it
good.
should probably be in there as a condition that
Right.
it happens.
Well, it is. I mean, I thought
Your
Oh,
children are old enough. The fifth grade is
Yeah, I
the
think
grade,
we're-
fifth batch we perform in the town.
Sorry?
Your kids are at the batch, right?
Yeah, but kindergarten is second. So there.
Okay, so findings of fact, subdivision.
One thing, as far as when we have A&R plans signed normally, actually, no, you don't. For subdivision, we require like a CAD file or something that can be easily incorporated into the town's GIS system. For just an A&R, we don't do that. It would be nice to to have it. If we wanted to put that in as a condition, I'm sure it would be something that would be too hard to provide, but it would be helpful for us to have it. But that's,
So with regard to,
This is like recording of the whole A&R.
Trying to get that thing that,
Page 9, 6.
what, so Danielle, it says applicant shall provide a copy of the recorded A&R plan subdividing the property into lots 2A and 2B, together with recording information. And I add to that,
if they can also provide a digital file that will help the town incorporate it into the town's GIS system, that would be great.
got it, that's great, thanks.
so here's a practical question in drafting a deliberation that can't take in any,
She can, she's part of
Right.
your, yeah.
okay, so for practical purposes, in order to draft a comprehensive document, well, not only for the, if we want to call what we went to the public hearing, established a record, right, a public hearing, but there's also just the practical building and usual regulations or processes that go on, that you can access assistance for those because they're pragmatic or just part of the
Yes.
standard
Right, it's really
business.
counsel's advice on
Okay.
getting clarification. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so,
And Danielle also helped with, on the draft too, with,
Okay.
you know, like I say, we went back and forth with the building commissioner a couple of times on tidying up on the waivers, and so, yeah, that would really fall within your, you know, advice of counsel on deliberations.
within the finding of facts, number 6, the project's wastewater management system is subject to permitting requirements of Mass DEP and not within the board's jurisdiction. Is that basically an acknowledgement or not a surrender of our trying to create conditions attending to the wastewater?
It's really just to kind of provide notice if somebody pulls this, they say, oh, that has a permit, that project, and they're like, what are they doing with their wastewater? And then they look and they don't see any conditions of wastewater, and they can see this, oh, I would have to look elsewhere for that. The main thing is because you would typically see, you know, provisions for sewer or wastewater, water, sewer, utilities, things like that. So I'm just putting it in the findings of fact just to indicate for general posterity that you're not looking in this permit for conditions related to
So
that.
do we just take out and not within the board's jurisdiction?
Yeah, sure.
And just make it clear that
I'm good
any
with that.
subject to permitting requirements to Mass DEP?
Yeah, good with that.
Thoughts?
Works.
Fine with that.
There was an email too from your other member. Did you see
That,
that?
yes, we're going to get to that when we get
Okay.
into conditions, because I think most of what he
Okay.
offered. Okay, so now we're into section 5, conditions. So,
Yeah, I had just a question, basic requirements, the plans. George, could we foresee any potential changes to these? So typically, they might do a issue for permit set.
Yeah, so
How
that's,
does that account for any potential changes that we wouldn't obviously see?
yeah, so that's like I say, I try to make these decisions as simple as possible so that there's no confusion. So yeah, there will typically be changes between your approved plan, which is of course preliminary, and then the final set which go to the building commissioner. So there's another process called for later on in the permit when they go for a building permit, they have to convert these approved plans into a set of final plans that are satisfactory to the building commissioner and make sure that they're in conformance with those. If he sees issues that are substantially different.
Like yeah, so we're talking about building height, wall
Yeah.
height, things of that
He'll raise
nature.
it
If it was
with them, or
egregious.
he can bring it to you too. I don't know what your customary practice is here. I've had towns where a building commissioner, there's certain things too that happen in the field, and that's part of that building commissioner process, but I've often had situations where a building commissioner will bring it to the board, will say, gee, this looks like a substantial change to me, and then they bring it to the board, and then
Yeah.
there will be a process for that.
I'm more thinking, we talked about the balconies. People had an issue with them facing their property, so they removed the balconies. If for some reason that the permit set, issue for permit set now incorporates those again, then building commissioner will flag that, know to flag that, bring it back to us, and then...
That's right. That's why it seems small, but like, for instance, civil and landscape plan set, there's several sheets in that set. On that date, that revision date. So that's his starting point that he's going to look at. He's going to look at the conditions, he's familiar with it. Then he's going to look at those final plans and compare it to it.
Gotcha.
So absolutely right. And architectural plans the same way. I think that's from the balcony.
Yeah, it'll be covered by the peer review from the architect against those
And
plans.
I should just explain to you too, there's a process, it's referred to somewhere in the permit here, but there's a process when the applicant recognizes that there's a material change. Let's not call it a substantial change. A material change, they'll bring it and they'll seek a determination from you. There's a specific regulation on it, and so they'll seek a determination whether it's a insubstantial or a substantial change. If you find it's a substantial change, you have a full public hearing like you did on the permit. If you find it's an insubstantial change, the permit will be deemed modified for that change. So, and that's not infrequent. That happens, pretty frequently, that there'll be changes as they go along, particularly if there's a wastewater treatment plan.
Sure.
Like that.
Thank you.
That's why also, the defined terms, you don't want too many defined terms in the permit, because really what it is the comparison between the approved plans, defined term, and the final plans to the building inspector. And then, of course, as-bills and things like that are different.
Okay.
Speaking of defined terms, the top of page 6, regulatory agreement, capitalized as a defined term. What is that?
Yes, it was, we didn't define it because that is what it is,
Okay.
regulatory agreement. I mean, we could uncapitalize it and then define it, but, I mean, we could say evidence.
Is there any merit to having an appendix
Of what, though?
of regulatory agreement, monitoring agent? I know they're defined within the body of it.
Yeah,
but-
I mean, regulatory agreement is, I don't think you need to define it beyond what it is here. term of art and it's something that the subsidizing agency has to enter into with them. You're just putting provisions in. It's like the project eligibility letter. You capitalize that, but you're not defining it anywhere. It is what it is.
See, we run it.
But to your point, more importantly, is there's nothing in this decision that raises confusion. Like, is this the regulatory agreement referred to in, there's nothing like that here. So terms are either defined or they're used once, but they're not like stated a slightly different way so that you're confused. There's no like, the words regulatory agreement don't show up somewhere else that has like a small a with agreement, or that you're confused. Is this what that was? So either something's a defined term or it's put in like this, but there's no ambiguity later of, is this what they referred to in an earlier paragraph? There's no vagueness about that.
Right, but in terms of, to the point being discussed, and I don't think it's that. We've run into situations where our building inspector has to leaf through any number of prior filings or permits or decisions, whatever the case might be, trying to draw a line to where the situation started, between where the situation and where it ends. So, I mean, I'm just asking because, defining the regulatory agreement by the date it was entered or as entered on, that gives you a very definite, sometimes it's just a matter of finding it as opposed to, now, if it's just a term of art that just describes everything in a general sense, okay, that's over here, but I'm not looking at it.
There isn't a regulatory agreement yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is there a better way to, when that comes into existence, to better define its location or source?
It's what will govern the project,
Okay.
yeah. The only thing you want to make sure that you're looking, because you have no control over the regulatory agreement.
Right.
But you just want to make sure that you can take over monitoring, not you necessarily personally the board, but that the town has the ability to monitor the affordability restrictions after that initial term is over.
So is the phrasing better stated that upon the expiration of the tenure of the initial monitoring agent, the responsibility of the subsequent or the next monitoring or the replacement, for lack of a better, shall be transferred to a duly appointed agent of the town? Because making reference, sure, I understand in the outset, making reference to the regulatory agreement to designate the this whole body of language is here to establish the role of the monitoring agent. And then further, by the way, eventually that term of appointment is going to expire.
Yeah.
And the town now decides who the monitoring agent is, as opposed to the regulatory agreement. So,
I mean, that's what it says.
right, I know, but it's a roundabout way. But okay, I mean, I get it. Ultimately, again, I'm overthinking it, so my apologies.
No, you're not. I mean, you can figure out a way of shortening that.
I think the point that's trying to be made here for the benefit of the town, all due respect to the applicant, is that eventually the town will be responsible for appointing a regulatory agent. And until that time, that's determined by the regulatory agreement, right? Somewhere in that body will be...
Yeah, usually that's to do with their construction
Right,
financing.
and then after that, the town takes it over. Because to me, the conditions, when you're crafting conditions, you're doing your best to address the needs of your constituents. And I think this constituency wants to know that eventually you're the ones that are going to take over who the monitoring agent is.
Right, I totally agree.
And for all intents and purposes, it doesn't end up just being the building inspector. Okay, great.
There's someone that does.
Yeah.
Again, me lawyer, not.
I don't know how I would state this any clearer than I have.
Okay, that's cool.
I mean, the intent of it is you want to make sure, the town wants to make sure that they have the ability to monitor that it's maintained in perpetuity. Because once the subsidizing agency is out of the picture, once this initial developer is out of the picture, nobody really cares. Only the town will care about that. So you just want to make sure that that's covered, so that's why that language is there. I'm open to suggestions to make it clearer, but I would be stumped
Okay,
to make
that's
it
fine.
clearer than it is.
I just, like I said, wanted to just explore that while we were here.
On paragraph 6, within 3 years from the date it is filed, is it the recorded version or the permit?
I would put from the date this decision is filed. We'll do that.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good point. Not that your points aren't good, Bob. It is, I'll put this decision instead of it is. No, this decision is instead of it.
Yeah.
Page 7, item 3, should we add Conservation Commission to that after fire departments? Is it necessary?
I wanted, well, before you jump there,
I'm sorry.
can I just, number 7 under section A, construction and marketing the project shall be subject to state and federal requirements, including but limited to fair housing. Applicants shall also cooperate with the town of North Reading in seeking local preference for housing in the project as may be permitted by the subsidizing agency.
Yeah,
That's
that's-
just standard language.
No. I'm glad you asked about it. You never talked, that never really came up about the need for a local preference or not. It's out of your jurisdiction. It's solely in the province of the subsidizing agency. But there are provisions that, and the town has to do some work on it because they have to provide information to the subsidizing agency. They need the applicant's cooperation. And it's not like a wholesale local preference. They do it in the way that they do it. So I wanted to just put a provision in there in case the town was interested in pursuing that. Usually will come through a town planner. They'll fill out paperwork that goes to the subsidizing agency that just, that basically provides the case for it, why we need the local preference. And then it goes from there. It's not within your purview, but I find it an important issue because in case that's something that the town is interested in, I just wanted to make sure that we had a provision for it.
But it has no controlling weight on the subsidizing agency.
Yeah, they would still do it the way they do it, but they do pay attention to it. I've had many times the town will justify it, and they do work it in. I can't tell you off the top of my head the details to it in relation to the fair marketing plan and all that, but they do honor it when the case is made. So I just wanted to make sure we raise the issue and preserve that right in case it was something that you wanted to pursue. Again, not you so much as the town,
Okay,
a local preference.
I get it.
And frankly, I don't know about your community enough to know if it is something that your town, people want to spend time on the subsidizing agency. I just don't know. But you have the right to do it before we go here.
Fair enough. I mean, to me, it looks like it's more likely to take, it might have more control after they transfer the property, they sell the property. I think the next interest might not come in with its own.
Yeah, you might be right.
I mean, but that's neither here. Okay, great.
It's a process that the town has to justify to them. So there's a process for it that really, you won't really have involvement in it.
Okay, thank you. So going into section B, prior to issuance with a building permit. Let's see. prior to commencement of construction, which shall include any clearing of land disturbance on the project site, the applicant shall submit final, fully designed plans for all buildings, roadways, stormwater management systems, and other project infrastructure review and approval by the building commissioner for performance with the approved plans and the conditions of this decision. So once again, we're just going under there's going to be this idea of there's plans, then there's final plans, and then there's really final plans.
Yeah, and
Progression.
And actually, I'm glad you kind of re-raised the issue because, you know, again, I try to avoid boilerplate to the extent I can because sometimes boards sort of inadvertently put that burden on themselves, like they're going to do that review. So I'm always clear about it, but I don't dictate what you want to do. So if you wanted more control over that process, we can revise this. I can tell you my advice, just based on experience, is you want that in the hands of your building commissioner at that point, because you really neither have the expertise nor the inclination to do that type of a review. And the building commissioner does, and the building commissioner also has the ability to get peer review assistance if needed. So generally, I find that a much better process, rather than having it sort of misunderstood about who's really doing the review of the final plans, is to put it in the building commissioner's hands, and then he or she would raise issues with you as they see fit, if they see a material change between the approved plans and the final plans. So this isn't something that's etched in stone, but it's something that I recommend, you do it that way, because at that point, you're talking about real technical issues in the plan set.
I just want to be sure that the shifting of responsibility isn't something that's, all due respect, we have a hardworking building commissioner and building and them trying to have in their possession the final, like, is this how it's done?
Yeah, he'll have peer review again.
Okay.
That's what
fine.
I'm saying is that's how I'm recommending it be done. You don't have to do it that way. You could, I've seen boards leave themselves as, the ones who are determining compliance of those final plans of the approved plans. I think it's practically a very bad idea.
Yeah, hard pass.
And, and especially a project of this.
I said hard pass.
Yeah, we typically have them.
I would leave it in the hands of the building
And
commissioner.
they'll have peer review again to facilitate that.
Can I take the lull? Kathy, are there tissues in the building somewhere? Thank you. Sorry, thank you.
So paragraph 3 of section B, I have it circled, and I think I have a line pointed to any other issues noted by the building commissioner as well as the North Reading Police and Fire Departments. Is that generally recognized as enough of a grant of authority?
I mean, do we need Board of Health? Do we need Conservation Commission? Or should we just do a catch-all and put all?
Or do they take it and then direct it?
Yeah, I mean, remember, Conservation Commission has their own inspection process.
Correct.
And their order of conditions, so this doesn't affect that. I mean, generally, for a site visit,
Saying
yeah,
final.
the construction plan, I mean, I'm open to suggestions about who else you think. I don't think it should be Board of Health or anybody like that about a construction management plan. It's more really, police and fire are involved because
Yeah.
site access and traffic and things like
If they had
that.
any issues about dumpster placement
Yeah.
and stuff like that, then
Yeah.
they would generally chime in, or maybe just
Thank
put
you.
all applicable town, what's the word I'm looking for? I would say committees, but,
I mean, I'm open, you have the building commissioner here too now. I mean, how does he normally do it? If you have suggestions for you.
would normally refer back to the Board of Health, refer back to the Conservation
Yeah.
Commission, make sure their approvals are already in place
Right.
prior to,
Yeah.
yeah. it might not be necessary
Break it down any
to
further.
break it down
Okay.
any further. And,
I work hand in hand with all departments, making sure that everything is done properly and is done in accordance to plans. We do everything third party, and I don't just expect somebody to give me basically a review or a progress report and just hand it to me, and I'm happy with that. I look at the progress reports, at the engineering reports, and I go and I review it. I've caught many issues and many problems at one of the larger buildings we just had done over here in the town, and we work them out. And I would suggest that we listen to town council because he's correct.
Okay.
Yep.
So again, that language you think is best?
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. Like I said, I just want to make sure that it facilitates the end we're trying to achieve, which is making sure authority vests.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody's going to give either the fire department or the police department a hard time. And I would hope that they would extend that same respect to our building commissioner. That's all. That's how I answer.
Yeah, and some processes are a lot smoother than others.
Okay.
Hopefully it'll be that way.
So we're now paragraph 4, paragraph 5, and as we go down, anybody with paragraph 4 of section, sorry.
You know, paragraph 5 there, I just want to call your attention. That's one of the instances where this could be a lot longer. They get very technical issues in terms of stormwater and drainage and those issues. The issues that are addressed in that report, this is almost like the final plans, is quite extensive, and he has everything in there that you would typically have in conditions. So I don't see a need to rewrite what's in the report.
Oh, you're referencing it.
Yeah, and I'm giving specifically the things that you're looking for in there, the operation and maintenance plan, the long-term plan. And those are, again, terms of art. They're referenced in the report, and it's very detailed. But those are terms of art that typically apply. There's a long-term pollution prevention plan, issues like that. So the ones that really matter on stormwater are specifically set out in paragraph 5, but it is referencing what was proposed in that report from January of 2026, which is very detailed about it.
So effectively, the project stormwater management system shall be constructed in accordance with the drainage report dated and stamped by the applicant's project engineer, Nicholas Delacala, PE, on January 15, 2026. That's black hole. That's where you go.
That's right.
Okay, and everything after that is just applicants should be aware. This is where you go to.
Right. And when you look in his report, all these items that I had have specific places.
So you took them all out, the pinpoints?
Yes, without just restating it all.
Sure, that's fine. Okay, thank you. Okay.
For 7B, I don't know if it matters, but 7A says applicant's engineer of record, 7B just says engineer, applicant's engineer. Do we want it of record?
Yes. Got it.
So I had a question next to A. How often? Is this just under the discretion of effectively the building commissioner, or do we have to designate intervals?
I think SCSL requires a certain amount too. It's generally during like the point there's key points throughout the inspection process that might want to come out during footings and foundations, rough inspections, things of that nature. They'll be out there quite a bit.
Okay.
Oh, and I think I had a note on A, is the update in writing, or is it verbal? Is there, it says shall provide an update. Is the update verbal or written?
They're generally in field reports.
Right, I didn't specify, but I can. 7A on page 7.
I was just going to try to do that.
Yeah, I would,
They usually have an outside peer review that writes reports while the construction of the roadways and engineering is going on.
depending on, the final architect is, they would come out and do a field report.
So does the building commissioner work off of written updates, or are they just often just?
You're going to obviously have to come back with the new version. Maybe Danielle and building commissioner could look at that paragraph in the meantime.
So they submit it to you and you
Yeah.
send it to us?
Yeah, and I would include it in that next draft that I give you.
So we'll note 7B
Got that.
to be revisited, to revise. Right.
7A.
7A.
7A? Thank you, sorry. Yeah, use a lot of comments.
Ask a question about, in the area of B5, sorry to go back to that, but it's discussed, like the peer review is discussed of the, the project plans once they reach the building department. We were talking about also having access to construction inspection services in terms of peer review. I don't know if that's encompassed within that or if that needs to be separate.
I think we should specify it.
Okay.
Yeah,
So where?
I forgot
Oh,
where.
it's
Before
page.
the other reviews
Okay.
discussed, so.
B5 under the project for stormwater management.
Maybe even B1, to provide sufficient funds to pay for technical peer review services. That might encompass it all.
I guess we just want to make sure it's not just peer review, but also inspection services, if that's.
Yeah, I mean, maybe you can, if you refer back to B1, the applicant shall provide funds sufficient to pay for technical peer review services reasonably necessary for the building commissioner's review and approval. Would that cover, catch-all, everything that?
Well, if we add what is it?
No, I disagree. I think we need the engineering. To put that in there in section 5.
He's actually talking about physical inspections and
Physical inspection, not just-
review
not
of,
just
peer
paperwork.
review of the
Okay.
permit that's
Yeah.
come in.
No, but
Oh,
we're
you
talking
tried.
about three different things now. Paragraph 1 is the first thing. Do we have to add something about, what did you say, inspections on paragraph 1?
No, I thought paragraph 1 of section B would be a catch-all to cover everything that Jerry's looking for, but
Yeah.
But he was mistaken.
I was mistaken.
So can you just work on that one too, paragraph 5?
Sure.
Yeah. Because that's a biggie, actually. I'm glad you mentioned it. Because that,
Kinds of me.
that point is, that's sort of the same thing as when the approved plans to the final plan. Same thing, stormwater is such a big issue that I had forgotten to kind of build that in, so.
Because we are actually supposed to have,
Correct.
for stormwater,
Yeah.
just our stormwater bylaw, we're supposed to have it.
So if you could just work on that paragraph, it's not much to add, it's just.
No, it's easy.
Yeah.
I have comments at top of 8 if we're there. I don't need to rush those.
We took after the stormwater, did we have an abutter who was directly concerned that his well was going to be?
Pretty much every butter was directly concerned about the well, but the issue came up that if something were to go wrong with the well, then they could prove it was a result of.
Right, but that, in the immediate, like when it's happening, who are you going to call? Well busters? I mean, that's the question, right? So where does that go? Like, are we kind of, I mean, I know Michelle took the same.
I mean, I
position
suppose we could add a condition with a periodic test the well water before and after.
Is this the place?
This would be the place and time to request that if you felt it necessary.
Yeah, I just don't recall it being recommended anywhere. So I didn't include it. I mean, I went through the peer review. Pretty heavy detail.
I mean, I don't have a well. I couldn't attest to how often someone tests
Right, but
well water. But
notwithstanding the
Yeah.
job that they did, I understand that, but they're looking at it kind of macro as opposed to micro. Are we,
Yeah, no, it's a good point. I just don't know the answer.
so what are we looking to achieve here? with
I'm all
the condition?
I think I'm all for baseline. So if we were to check the well prior to construction, everything checks out fine. Check the well after construction. If something's wrong, then it would be up to the applicant to rectify that situation.
And do we need an event to precipitate
No, because
something
you're
wrong?
No, because you're testing it before. If the water checks out fine before, then okay. If it checks out fine afterwards, there's no issue. If something occurs afterwards and it checks out bad, then theoretically you could point the finger back at the applicant and say something they did resulted in a
Yeah.
Bad
I mean,
water.
It would really be
test.
it would be the property owners.
Burden to. Well, is it though? I mean, if they're blasting, is it the property owner's burden to check their foundation? How does this fall any different?
Well, the good faith that you referenced within the body
What are we talking
of
about?
the
Two
applicant, and I think it was sincere. I've never doubted the sincerity of their project. I mean, but they're over here, like they.
I'm happy to add it. I just don't recall it in the record. I'd have to think about it.
Well, I don't think the peer review was looking to specifically address a singular interest.
Yeah,
And I mean, why would
they
they?
wouldn't be,
They
yeah.
wouldn't be, that's their, but.
But even the butters, was that requested? I just don't remember.
Well, I don't think they made
I
requests.
think
I think
they
they
voiced a
complained.
serious concern and a complaint about their.
I remember discussion about testing the water. And I remember the developer making a note in his notebook. I just don't remember what we agreed to.
I'm trying hard to not make it seem as if it's an overreach. I think there's merit to
I
this.
know, I'm not saying it's on.
Okay, thank you.
I recall it was a baseline and no other promise beyond that, but at least
And honestly,
acknowledging.
it's probably in the applicant's favor, because Lord forbid something is wrong with their well now.
Oh, do you have the FAQ?
They could go back and say, hey, you caused this. It
Isn't
would be
that-
This is.
$250 well test to
I
alleviate a
yeah.
headache.
It was in the FAQ, or the applicant's response to questions, I thought.
It might have been.
Eric, at our town meeting regarding this March 4th, Eric Carlson from GM2, the peer reviewer, excuse me, stated, and again, this is a capture of minutes by the board, doesn't know about the hydrology, but it is in the opinion, again, of GM2, that the system, the applicant system as designed, should work as intended, conveying the stormwater and bringing it through the system to discharge. Pre-blast sleep, he went on to note, pre-blast surveys can be done and photographs taken of their foundations and cracks for pre-existing conditions. If a new crack appears after blasting, then there is grounds for the blaster through their insurance to remedy that. He said maybe there should be baseline documentation for the septic system. Maybe an inspection prior to commencement of work. Maybe the wetland should be documented, tested, and in the event there was a claim of damage, there would be a point to go back or monitoring the wells between the two locations, etc. So, but to the point, counsel to the applicant noted that even though this is not part of the 40B process, this is all regulated by DEP. It's part of the groundwater discharge permit process, and their frequently asked questions report. They addressed this. They did put this information out to be available to the public. DEP has approved 3 monitoring wells. That location was outlined. That will be tested, and the results will be online for anyone to see. So does this act as a catch-all for that, as it exists here, or should we be looking to put in a particular
Yeah, I mean, I don't feel
condition that
great-
can kind
yeah.
of capture that?
I don't feel great about being more restrictive than what they're doing on that, because they could say that it's beyond your jurisdiction, but if you wanted to reiterate what's being done with baseline testing,
Well, I think they said they were going to baseline test the monitoring wells, they were going to baseline test the foundations prior to doing any blasting, if blasting is required. It didn't note anything about baseline testing of the physical butters' personal well water, which, again, I have to refer
Yeah.
back to, if I were the applicant, I would personally spend the $250, whatever the fee is, to just have the well water tested, to clear that up. If there was something wrong at Butter's well, and they didn't say anything, and all of a sudden the construction goes on, and they come back and say, hey, my well is,
They can point to the test
They
that was
can
done
point.
pre-project.
they can point to the test that was done pre-project and say, hey, we tested your well is bad. Not our fault.
so are we identifying specific abutters or just abutters or possessive?
I would say Butter's possessive of well for drinking water.
I thought it was 4 and 8.
Where you are.
Do we?
So do we have specific abutter?
Can we identify those?
We have to identify the specific abutters.
We don't have to, I could say abutter is plural possessive if it's
Possessive of drinking water. We don't care about irrigation.
no plural possessive, I'm saying abutters,
Yeah.
abutters wells.
Kathy, do you have the January 22nd meeting minutes? In your magic bag of tricks? Matt's notes reference that specific meeting where it was agreed to test the well, so we should go
Oh.
pull those meeting minutes. I just don't have them. And I have in my notes, condition of pre-construction survey for 4 and 8 Lynn, but we'd want to go back and double check that.
Are you referring to the email from the member?
Matt Martin, but
Yeah.
but he's referring back to meeting minute notes that the applicant
His
agreed.
note on pre-construction groundwater survey references on a January 22nd meeting of ours where it was agreed, and then my notebook, I likewise have a note saying condition of pre-construction survey for 4 and 8 Lynn. So, in combo, I just think we should just double check if that was already agreed to.
I mean, it's irrelevant, I thought that was part of what we were talking about, or is it not? Yeah.
What Bob just read?
I'm thinking of the gentleman
I would think
who only talked about his well.
That's what I'm thinking, yeah.
I'm-
Before Lynn, I didn't think he was.
No, but that I thought we put to bed of DEP's, I was going to say problem jurisdiction. That was a different issue.
That was a different issue. We were
This
talking
was,
about-
I'm talking about retaining wall and stormwater
Right.
because now it's there and then it's going to run down, but that,
That, I think, was put to bed because of the way that the pitch and the...
yeah, but my notes are, this was agreed to, so we should just double check that and then maybe can add it.
Okay.
Maybe put a pin in that one and we can come back.
So you guys are in agreement with what Matt stated?
Yes, I think.
That's my recollection.
Yeah, that's what I would...
All the bullet points that he put in, do you want those, work those in somewhere? Or
Yes, I'm a yes on that one.
Yeah.
There were any number of times when Matt found it ironic that he was on this side of the table as opposed to the applicant side of the table. So I think he has a very experienced grasp of the process, and I think that's why his capture of the several points are valid. I mean, we could go through them now, but
I don't think we need to, we,
I would just
a
ditto
couple
them.
of them, I
do we
think.
know of a sign with,
Well,
Yeah.
let's stay within your document, because I think that's the best. I'd like to, so
Yeah.
going back to it, so we're, section B, paragraph 5 is just going to be, revised for purposes of
Yep, you got that.
for purposes of, or are we going to carve out a special directive, try to craft a condition that will pre-test before construction? Is that what we're looking to do here?
Yeah, I'm gonna know, I'm gonna try to do that.
Okay. Great, thank you.
Foundation and the water.
Top of 8, when we're there.
Yeah.
C, dust leaving the site. Can we flip site to property?
Yeah.
So you're talking 7C?
Yes.
My question was, how is this monitored?
If someone has a problem, they
Right,
say you're
so
not
they're
complying,
banging-
and then it's an enforcement situation.
Okay, so it all comes back to the building,
Yeah,
building
and
inspector.
ultimately, yeah.
Okay. All right. I'm just on this point. The likely disagreement with this project even going up, the idea that I would be concerned that any small thing is going to result in someone, trying to reach the building inspector, and I don't want to put him in a position where he has to say, well, this is just kind of what happens during construction, which is true. I mean, but it's just, so when I said, does this get monitored, to what level? Like, I guess there's no way to craft a condition to create a baseline for this, but I don't envy either party, because I think it's going to be,
Well, you're gonna have that construction plan, I would assume they wet things down, there really shouldn't be a dust problem on the
Okay.
site. But if there is, you've got a provision in there for it, so the building commissioner can either enforce it or bring it to you guys.
so that brings us to was it 7D, construction activities?
Sorry, you just caught site is in 2 places in that paragraph. It's at the end of the.
Project site, and then project site, yeah, it's on the site.
No, you're OCD. Okay.
I thought I was in. Construction activities. So I know that there was a liaison, at one of our earliest meetings, there was a point brought by a select board member about the timelines and the traffic management during construction. And I look at paragraph 7D as capturing a lot of those. So I'm open to having anybody's thoughts on this. So a 7 a.m. commencement and set nothing beyond 7 p.m.
And I don't see that you guys have an ordinance or anything for that. Sometimes there are.
The police department has a much more stringent regulation than just our normal noise bylaw, which is ours is 7 to 9, 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. or Monday through Saturday. But the police department actually they're restricted to work after dusk. So as soon as dusk hits, work is done. And it starts at 7. And that's Monday through Saturday. And if they want to work on a Sunday, they got to come through myself and the police department. And that's not going to happen.
Yeah, so then this is consistent with what Jerry just said, as it's written here. So, is there nothing on Sundays or holidays? So it's 7 to 7. is pretty standard. It's up to you, though. I don't love 7 a.m. even where I live, but it is a standard practice, 7 a.m.
That is standard, correct.
Isn't dusk like 5 o'clock in winter, though?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, generally, you're probably not going to see guys working at 7 o'clock in the wintertime unless they're inside, the building's dried in, and
Well, part of the problem when I talked to our previous police chief, the reason why they say till dusk was the fact that people put these big spotlights out there to work. And that's what causes issues with the neighbors. You can't be casting light onto your neighbor's property. That's a violation.
So can we would it be appropriate to craft a condition that exterior spotlight use will be limited to a time, definite time?
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to use it at all. You don't want to allow it at all.
Okay.
I don't want spotlights being used.
Okay, so do we just
No.
condition it that there shall be no spotlights?
Well, no, but then you're sort of implying that you're allowing work at night.
Okay.
I mean, I would either tweak the 7 p.m. or just leave it as is.
If you go to 7 p.m., you have a much more restrictive with the police department is 7 to dusk. So they're going to go over there regardless if that says 7 to 7 p.m. The more restrictive is going to apply, which is going to be 7 to dusk. So if it's at dusk, if it's 4 o'clock or 4:30, police are going to go over there. They're going to call from the neighbors. They're going to shut them down. And they're going to call me.
You're the mother of the youngest children here.
It happened 30 times at the large project we just had finished up here. At least 30 times.
I mean-
Not more.
dusk could be 8 p.m. on the...
Yeah, I guess having a concrete number is better than
They were
trying to
long
figure out
and fine
sunset.
many times.
I mean, it's an independent jurisdiction they have, so I'm actually comfortable with some, because that's a good point is, and I used to coach baseball, and I remember we'd be up there at 9:15 on the summer nights, and it was getting
That's
very
okay.
dark. But, so, you know, if they have an issue that the police want to enforce, that they're going past dusk, well, I think you're better off with a number on the time.
Yeah, dusk can be very...
Spectacle.
It could be very late.
Yes.
It could be 9 o'clock.
Just hiding on site.
7 to 6. That's our general cutoff time.
George, if you want, Danielle and I can work on I can work on it, and on D, and give you something, send you something.
Yeah.
Ventilated hours in the summer, we have people outside.
Check with the board.
Probably enjoy the summer.
Would they use exterior lights in the
You can
winter?
limit it to exterior work. You can say no exterior work beyond 6.
Well, this is all exterior
It
construction.
does say all exterior. So now that begs another interesting point. Do we remove exterior and put all construction? Because now you have people working inside. What if they want to work till 8, 9 o'clock at night? Is that a problem? People are going to hear that.
You're
Probably not.
pulling
But if
anywhere from 5 to 6 or 7 hours off the project.
You're prolonging the
There's a-
project.
There's a lot to be said for getting it done.
Yeah, it's to say you're prolonging it.
The experience of the town with regard to it, the board is trying to figure out the merits of dusk versus 7 p.m. I didn't have that on the big one.
Well, during the summertime, it stays light out till what, 8 o'clock?
8 o'clock.
Right, so do you want,
So if you have 7, and then as it gets later into the season, your construction time is going to be diminished.
what union is going to let their guys stay in the dark?
It's not union, but generally most guys are not going to want to work outside
4:15, 4:30.
past 4 or 5 o'clock. unless they're just trying to bang the project out and get it done. Roofers could work into, 8 o'clock at night sometimes if it's sunny out and they want
So
to
the
get.
hard and fast 7 PM seems to be the most clear for all parties involved in this. Be
Yeah.
it the applicant, okay.
Otherwise, I think you're getting an argument of like,
No,
I would think you'd want to put in there 7 PM or dusk.
I'm okay with
You don't want
a flat
lights, you
7.
don't want to be casting lights. I'll be running around and shutting them down, and it's frustrating.
is dusk too variable
And we could just
term of
We
art?
could just put the use of exterior construction floodlights.
The problem with 7 before dusk is dusk can be much later, that's what I'm saying. We used to be out at 9 o'clock, because
Yes.
it was still a little bit light, just enough.
That's correct.
Yeah,
If we had the catch-all, the use of
So the
exterior
7
construction
7 p.m.
lights
capture
is strictly
everything?
prohibited.
Yeah, 7 PM, it does, but I just want to make sure that we have them more restrictive as it gets later.
Well, if police is
Into the
independent,
seasons.
then
yeah.
they can go.
7 PM would be that.
Yeah.
Okay. Leave it as is.
On H, there's another on-site, I think, project site. Just to continue being fussy.
No stumps?
Yeah, no stumps, construction debris shall be buried or disposed of on site.
I assume we mean project site, we can't,
Project.
and if they want to bury it on the other half of the property, they can. I also don't know where to put it, but I had a note that we had also talked about dark sky compliance for lighting,
Yeah.
and I don't know if that was ever captured in the plans. I don't think it was, but we talked about making it a
Yeah,
condition.
I don't know the answer to that, but,
Yeah, because that was part of our,
I remember that, yeah.
Dark sky compliance for lighting, tilt lights away or cover it up was my note.
yeah.
I can't hear you. What were you saying?
Oh, sorry, dark
compliance.
sky.
So their lighting that they're putting on their site won't cause issues to any of the abutters.
Okay, yeah.
We had talked about that at
I
some
know
meeting.
that the applicant touched base on it, saying they put shades on it that directs the light down, and
That's part of our environmental under our zoning bylaws.
they'll do a photo.
I mean, is it enough that I just added there, including but not limited to dark sky compliant exterior lighting,
Where are you putting that?
certificate of occupancy?
I think so.
That's good,
If anyone else remembers that.
because I remember it,
Okay.
yeah.
The only thing I can
Now
tell
that you say it, I remember.
Yeah.
all I can tell you is that what is now the Brew Place was first conceived as being the Great American Tavern. Was it?
Yeah,
Really?
American Tavern.
They had trouble with the rear lighting on the lot, such that the owners, they ended up turning it at the request of the rear abutters, and it made the situation worse for them. And they went back and forth. So this idea of one man's lighting is okay and another person's isn't. And I know you can tell the shading, it works, but I don't know, I think that this might be one of those issues that as much as we try to, it speaks to all of this, as much as we're trying to correct it up front, there's certain things that aren't
Well,
going to be known.
their architect will have to do a certain term for it, but a lighting drawing, because legally they have to have certain coverages and candle lights for parking spaces, et cetera, that they can't encroach on. But peer review should be able to pick that up, but also they don't want lights shining.
Is that how these
We
things
got
go
this, yeah,
with it, that
yeah.
fulfills it?
That's how you generally see it, right, Jerry?
Be looking for it.
They'll have a lighting plan that will show that photo.
Oh, they have to have a lighting plan.
Yeah, they'll show the candle lights, the
Yeah.
exterior.
Yeah, correct.
It'll be stamped and approved.
Does that, I'll pass on that. Excuse me. By the way, it was pointed out that at our What date was this? Sorry. I made reference to well, Nick Massey, who was on the Board of Selectmen, at one of the public hearings, suggested that the board, that they condition the project for construction traffic, specifically to exit right out of the site and into Middleton, effectively directing them away from driving into North Reading at the end of the day. So that was raised by a select board. And at that time, I'm trying to remember, but I don't think it, I don't, and I welcome anybody who does remember.
I thought somebody had a problem with it.
What he did, he asked.
Yeah, but I thought somebody had a problem with what he asked.
Somebody being within the applicant.
I don't remember.
I think we're essentially telling people to go
So it might have been that.
to Route 1 or 90,
Directed traffic,
Wasn't that at the high school?
That was done at the high school, at the
I
at
thought
the
somebody
learning
said, how
center.
do you monitor that? And it didn't make any sense. I remember somebody mentioning about monitoring it.
yeah, I don't know how you,
No, I'm just raising
Yeah.
points that, look, I see all of the collection of all the notes and minutes and statements and submissions from the public as fertile for discussion for purposes of crafting conditions. So that's why I bring up the one guy, gentleman, the abutter, was like, this is gonna, my wells are never gonna be the same, if they're ever gonna be, and my backyard's gonna be underwater. And he believes that he's already got the problem now, it's only gonna be exacerbated. So, you know, I look at it as, should we be taking,
I got you. Yeah, but you know, you can get into trouble with conditions like that because you have a traffic review and you had the peer reviewer here.
right, but the traffic review didn't discuss the construction traffic. So I'm completely, again,
Yeah.
if anybody sits there and says, I don't think there's any way we can monitor it, and it's unfair to the construction. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
not trying to be, I'm just trying to,
Yeah. I mean, I think it reasonably falls within the construction plan when they meet on site. Which,
so is it a common conversation pre-construction for
I would think it falls into
the
that.
construction,
What trucks are coming, when.
the big truck guys to tell the people which way we're gonna drive our big trucks? 'Cause, you know, that's how I kind of, I don't know.
Doesn't that have to do with like where they're going?
Sure, and where you're coming from, but
if I have to go to 495, I'm not going to go towards the middle.
Good one.
Look, I can remember Massey where he stood and when he brought it up. That's fine. But it just might have been that simple. How do you monitor it?
How do you monitor it?
What are you trying to achieve? And, you know, since I'm not party to the construction activities within the town of North Reading, I'm open to somebody who might be able to, you know, tell council that's just, this is how buildings get built. Right? Is that really what it comes down to?
I don't know. I mean, if there's a compelling reason,
Okay.
you know, if one route goes over a narrow road with kids on it, you don't want trucks going that way, just like any not truck route, but
I genuinely believe that his bigger point was the timeline. Because he went on, it wasn't just the direction of the trucks, although we did use that as,
Yeah, you can go left and get to
Yeah.
62 all the way to the highway. You don't need to go on.
I don't think there's any way of avoiding them. Let's face it, probably all of the concrete's going to come from right down here. They're not going to go to Middleton to return their truck and fill it back up.
I don't think it warrants.
okay.
Yeah,
I just, like I said, I just wanted to capture his concern.
I flagged it, George, in my notes to you, but the landscaping plans to move up into the prior to issuance of C, page 10, item 9. That should be moved into the prior to issuance of certificate of occupancy section rather than the general section.
Oh, okay.
Can I ask something? Jerry, are you going to let them occupy building A without occupancy permit?
No, they have to have an occupancy permit. They have to have an occupancy permit to occupy it. We already discussed that at the meeting. I think Mike was at that meeting as well. And we discussed that. And I think they know that. Mass General Law, Section 143, which governs the building code, is not going to allow that. So that's law.
So can they meet C1 without, with doing that?
Couldn't hear you.
Could they meet C1 the way it's written?
The applicant shall submit to the project and an architect will review and approve the
It's getting cold. So cold.
Under Mass General Law, no.
Are you not
But
cold?
Mass General Law prevails. So let's say they have to have a certificate of occupancy. We could have George just put that in, pencil that in, that it's required, but
Wait, what are we talking about?
I don't think it's a,
I'm following.
The applicant wants to occupy building A before it's finished so that they can start on B, is that correct?
no, building A would be completed. I discussed that with, I think he was.
Building A is supposed to be completed first before building.
Completed, correct.
Before building
Then they
B.
have to give us the plan and make sure that everything's going to be safe. Police was on board with it, fire was on
Yeah.
board with it. And we would allow them to start construction of B.
But you're saying it's tied to project rather than tied to building in condition 1?
Is it tied to the project or tied to the building? The certificate?
It's the building gets that certificate of occupancy. If I do a project, then you're talking about everything gets done until, and then I get a certificate of
I
occupancy.
think it's worded correctly.
Okay. I just don't
But
want
it's
them to
getting
have an
late too,
issue
I
later on.
think.
It says project.
It says project.
It says project in there.
Oh, does it say project?
It
Yeah.
does, yeah, that's why.
But the project has been completed in accordance with the final plans, including but not limited to exterior lighting, snow storage areas, driveways, parking, so
Yeah, it's talking about everything being.
everything.
Yeah.
Whether that's up to your discretion.
We can get some language in there. We'll figure
I'm
it out.
assuming building A is probably their clubhouse and water occupied and a new model
That's how
unit.
things become confusing, because that is assuming exactly what you're saying, the whole thing is done.
Right.
So,
And if we're saying we would allow occupancy for building A before the entire thing's done and they're still building B, we need
Add
to
the word phase construction. That might clear it up. Phase construction, building A being building A being completed prior to building B.
I mean, I think we should break it down.
Or do you want to go as it says in 2 and 3, that you're going to let them post bond of some kind?
No, I think that's just if they walk away from that covers us if they walk away from the work or fail to complete.
Yeah, if the intent is to let occupy one building, we probably need to massage
I
the
mean, I could say
language.
the first certificate of occupancy. Well, are you issuing one certificate of occupancy or
No,
another?
let me show you. There's a building. If you have a building, and that building is completed, that building is required to have a certificate of occupancy. I'm not going to issue a certificate of completion.
So I guess, should we say prior to issuance of first certificate of occupancy?
You could say that. That works.
Does it?
prior to occupancy, certificate of occupancy per building, per final construction of building.
That's a different thing, though. What would you be requiring? Would you be requiring all of this for building A? Snow, internal driveways, infrastructure, landscaping, utilities, water.
I would just say that the building has been completed in accordance with the final plans, included but not limited to exterior lighting, snow storage areas, internal driveways, parking, related infrastructure, lands.
The landscaping might not
So
be
just-
done, signage might not be done.
So,
Yeah, it's still not,
But that's not occupancy.
is there merit to distinguishing between the building being done and the project being done? Is that what this solely comes down to? Because when I think of the project being done, I think of everything being done. From pools to dog walk to 3-bedroom, 2-bedroom, parking garage, etc. So for occupancy, is it going to be building to building? One, identifying one.
They're two different things. We're talking about certificate of occupancy.
And certificate-
Jerry's talking about certificate of completion, which would be the entire project.
So,
They would have to have the certificate of occupancy for the first building, period. They would have to have it.
But that doesn't necessarily include all of these things.
It's not,
that you've
it's,
done, right?
there's
not
no way
going
it's
to.
going to include all the, it's virtually impossible to include every little thing with this.
Take out some-
So we would have to change some of that language.
yeah, I mean, that's my point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You could take all that out and just put issuance of a certificate of occupancy from the building commissioner, which would cover anything that you might be looking for on that certificate of occupancy. We don't necessarily need to call everything out because he won't issue it if it's not to his satisfaction. So you can leave it a little maybe ambiguous in that regards.
But isn't this section our big hook of trying to get everything?
Completion.
Okay, so yeah, we want to be more specific and less
That's right.
ambiguous.
That's what's really important.
Well, I mean, Jerry wouldn't
We're
sign
saying different things.
Okay, what if we do certificate of occupancy first building, certificate of occupancy second building, and certificate of completion? Everything's done.
That's fine.
And that includes landscapes and so forth at the end.
That would be all at the end under certificate of completion.
Procedurally, we're going to want to, we've made so many changes, we're going to want to come back and review this live again, right?
So let's
Okay,
just get to the body of it.
just checking.
We'll also give Matt a chance to see if we've incorporated his suggestions or notes.
Okay.
And I just want to go through those one by one because two of them, one of them I don't think, we might have already addressed, but I just want to make sure.
I just don't know how to break all this down with this is, I don't mean to be a pest, but it's like, this whole thing was assuming completion of the project, 1 through 8. C1 through 8, so we have to break it down. I guess I can work with Jerry to try to break it down. I don't typically,
I think some
a
of these,
certificate of completion is a building code requirement, isn't it?
Certificate, you're going to have certificate of occupancy first.
Yeah.
Certificate will be the second one. Completion just says that the whole project has been completed. Yes, that is a requirement.
Of the building code. Or no?
Certificate of occupancy is what's required of the building code.
Yeah. What is certificate of
Completion is also required, but certificate of completion, the state wants us, as you said, the building code, the state wants us, Mass General Law wants us to give certificates of completion,
Yeah.
period. That's been drilled into our heads by the
So
state over
I
and
think
over
we
and
need
over.
to, I think we need to work on
Permit for that drawing?
this whole section, C1 to 8, because you're not requiring all this for certificate of occupancy on building A.
Yeah, I think we need to slide in a subsection saying prior to issuance of the first certificate of occupancy, here's the minimal,
Yeah.
and then the rest of this comes in prior to the issuance of
Yeah.
the second certificate of occupancy, here's the rest.
With that second subsection referencing the prior one, saying that upon completion of all C 1 through 8, or whatever it turns out to be, now we're talking about completion.
Yeah, would encompass all of that.
You could say on this one, prior to the occupancy for building B, all of this needs to be done. You wouldn't have to do a completion, but
Yeah.
So let's not forget that they're not looking to, I mean, ultimately, all construction gets piecemeal, but this interest is trying to complete the project because of they've got, my impression is, investment funding issue. So they want to complete it in its entirety, and you don't want to be, in the past, they always seem to be that will hold your occupancy over your head until you complete the full project. These deep pockets suggest to me that they're not going to just sit on it and just try to
But
work it, but at the same time, go ahead.
no,
I
like,
think we got to work on C1 to Jerry.
the certificates of occupancies are only carrot to get them to jump through
That's right.
the meat of our conditions. So we just
Right.
want to know what they have to jump through first for, like, that's why the tree planting's moving up, and that's so important. Get the trees
Right.
done first before you get your building A.
Right.
So the
because
neighbors.
Otherwise, Lynn Street. that's-
Yeah, and there's no time, that's the only time-bound,
Right.
the main time-bound thing is the
Jerry, we
certificate
need
of
to break
occupancy.
it down about what you need for
We're
building
trying to be as
A.
comprehensive as possible, and I fully understand that.
That would be a section C1 through 8. You need to figure out what has to be done for building A and then what you need for building B. Second through, because all of this stuff you're not requiring for building A.
Plus the trees that are moving up, so it's really 1 through 9.
Which one's moving up?
The trees, we were putting the trees as a condition, so that's on page 10. Final landscaping to shield 4 and 8 Lynn, that was,
Oh, yeah.
I'd like to see that as a condition of building A.
Yeah.
Well, look, the more specific the progression, the better for the developer. I mean, really, because now there's not any, well, we'll do this first
I
and that
don't have a
last.
problem with any of it, I just.
Yeah.
it
We need the
needs to be
language.
Substantially.
Sure. Yeah, the progression.
revised.
Yeah, no, that makes sense, yeah.
Since we're looking at section C, C8 reads, "The board or its designee shall have the right to review and approve the management operations plan referred to in the preceding
Can I
paragraph."
interrupt you for a
Okay.
second? Well, Jerry, I think we could just break that section down as if we say, in the first paragraph there, the applicant proposes occupancy of building A before building B. For building A, what we're requiring. And then for building B, what we're requiring. Because we're not requiring all of this stuff that's in there for building A. Although Michelle just said we are requiring it for the landscaping thing.
I'd like to.
We just need to break it down and then between building A and building B. You don't have to really say anything about the certificate of completion there because it's not really relevant to their permit conditions.
Okay.
And earlier, I called out that it's a separate process for the building code, but you'll try to coordinate it at, the same time so that things can be done at the same time. But it's called out for your review under this permit is separate from your building code.
Writing a bill.
Understood.
Yeah, all right.
Okay, yeah.
Good. Go. Thanks.
I had questions about, not that we want to die in the subsection that is C. C7 and 8 talk about a
I did.
management operations plan. And it doesn't, sometimes it reads as if it's talking about the construction, and then it's talking about post-construction during occupancy such that, limited to snow and ice removal, trash disposal, pickup and recycling, maintenance, pets and pet waste controls. Like all those things are things that exist after people are there, right?
Correct, and they might not necessarily have that.
Well, then 7 jumps to 8 and it references the board, us. And the board or its designee, I'm assuming. Where the board shall have the right to review and approve the management operations plan referred to in the preceding paragraph with approval not to be unreasonably withheld. So I'm trying to, I'm asking.
The thing that you're talking about.
Right, which is,
About not ending up with a blighted
no,
project.
no, thank you. So is subsection 7 and 8 talk about post-completion?
Yes.
Okay, so whereas most of what subsection C talks to prior to issuance.
Yeah, because you want that before the certificate of occupancy.
Right.
Be satisfied
Okay,
with that.
thank you. All right.
Yeah. That's why it's in that section.
And will the board's power exist only until the project is, the certificate of completion is issued and then all that shifts over to effectively the building inspector?
To enforce that management plan.
I mean, just like any
Okay,
enforcement issue.
that's fine. Thank you.
But
Okay.
enforcement will come out of the four corners of this. So if somebody catches wind that, it ends up that they're leaving trash for 2 weeks at a time instead of weekly pickup or whatever it is that you would approve, then it becomes
Okay,
enforcement.
thank you. Thank you for the clarification. I'm okay. Okay, thanks. So we'll be done with C, with the understanding that C is just going to be tightened and situated differently. Under general, section D, there's a notation under number 3, no irrigation wells are permitted. Sprinkler systems shall be managed only as needed to maintain landscape features. North Reading annually has water restrictions. Is that just assumed as being part of the public domain of management?
I can add a reference because we did add that later in on the water conditions, C and 7, all those 7, 8 to G had talked about water use restrictions. D, irrigation on the property shall conform to
Right.
any water use restrictions the town issues or implements. So I did, we could put a comma there on 3 together with the requirements.
And is item 1 even necessary? I mean, isn't that just a general construction requirement under, all plumbing fixtures now are
I don't know.
low flow?
I don't know. Somebody recommended that. Somebody told me to put that in from the town.
Jerry, is that construction law is,
Not particularly.
okay.
I think it was agreed to during the process between the applicant and the Ipswich Water. Ipswich,
We'll leave it in.
Something Joe or Matt.
Ipswich Watershed or whatever
Watershed,
it's called had recommended some conditions that they agreed to, and that's where I think that came from.
D2, just to stay on theme, plantings on the project site instead of just on site.
Yeah, hang on a second.
Maybe 4 to project site residents.
Just control F.
Yeah, I got it.
Or just control F for site.
I got it.
Wouldn't there be some plantings on the river?
Yeah, we'll get there. That's in
Yeah.
a later section.
It's slugging along.
Yeah, I'm tired.
Under D5, sorry, it's the lawyer in me. The placement of the term perpetuity. Project maintenance team shall contract with a third-party provider to maintain the stormwater system in perpetuity in accordance with the above conditions pertaining to stormwater. So the project maintenance team turns it over to a third-party provider. Whoever that might be, that's who, so effectively, project maintenance, stormwater system maintenance will be done by a third party in perpetuity, regardless of who that third party is. Right? Is that what you're trying to say?
Where are you? Because I was
Sorry. D5.
Page 10, sorry.
I'm laughing because the word is perpetuity is just
There.
burned into
Don't
my
do it.
brain.
Yeah, this is just, it was part of the record.
They may have to do reporting to DEP, or DEP might have to.
And no, with regard to stormwater, that they have the specific plans that I referenced earlier in that drainage report, like a long-term pollution plan and operations and management plan. That's what that falls on. But they get a vendor to handle that.
Right, the vendor, so it's always going to be handled by a third party?
Yes.
And that's, so for purposes of the term in perpetuity, regardless, like, you don't have to find a vendor who's going to be like, will be your only vendor. It'll just
Yeah.
always be managed for
Yes.
purposes by a third party interest.
Yeah.
Is that-
The main point of perpetuity there is that somebody's maintaining the stormwater system.
Right. Okay. I might say, like, I'm just clarifying the language for myself, so I might send that out to you.
Yes.
That's fine. Okay. All signs and pavement markings shall conform with traffic.
Oh, yes.
Controls.
Oh,
The thing about the neighbors is, see that?
yep.
Town water, town water, town water.
Oh, yeah. Number 7C we talked about, is notating the map and parcel.
Yeah.
I don't have that.
7G, pressure and bacteria test shall be witnessed by the water, department. Do we have to, is that just going to be on the new standard schedule and they'll establish that with the water?
Yeah, I mean, I got that verbatim from him from the water.
Okay. I didn't know if there was a term of frequency, no less than 3 times a year or something.
He
Like,
didn't specify.
okay, so does that leave,
We could ask Kathy to ask him.
does that, well, as written there, does that put the time, does that leave to the discretion to the water department for how often these pressure and bacteria tests shall be
I would think
witnessed?
so.
Okay,
Honestly,
I'm okay
being-
with that.
I'm
That's
not
fine.
being facetious, but it would literally be a question that he would have to answer, because I
Okay.
took his conditions and I put it in verbatim.
That's
So
fine.
And what, I know water guys are engineers, and I didn't want to mess with how he worded it, so.
I just wanted to be sure that, again, this town is so environmentally impacted that granting that kind of discretion to the water department is, in my mind, is a good measure for the town and the community and the occupants of 20 Elm, quite frankly. Easement, so here we are back to easement agreement with the property owner for project access were recorded. So how do we leave that they were going to establish getting the easement from?
I mean, they'll have to, they're separating the properties and they'll get their easement.
Right, but we're going to craft language somewhere earlier in the
No,
document.
we just took out, we put a period.
Okay.
Because it was a fact, not a condition.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have to get it prior to getting a building permit.
It's hard, because you're landscaping trees.
Yeah, you caliper.
Calipers. Yeah, I learn a lot
Is that
in
now
this process.
your safe word?
No.
Caliper.
But I did explain what it meant to my kids. I was like, I learned a new word. They didn't care.
Excuse me, can I ask a question here on 7C? You have a redaction, page 10, the project water line shall be looped, where it says loop through.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to understand why that was redacted all.
You can just change the wording, right?
Yeah.
Just wording was changed only?
Yeah, it's not redacted, it's, you know, there's been a couple of iterations of the draft so far. And so I didn't want, when I got them the initial draft, then you and Danielle worked on some stuff. I got some stuff from Danielle, I got some stuff from Kathy. But when I made further changes to it, I didn't want the board to have to read through the entire thing again. So I just noted where things were changed and track change. But that's an important issue because it had to do with that it's, and the board, I'll defer to you on it, that it ended up, I don't think the residents wanted the looping through that roadway, so they just wanted it stubbed to the western border in case you needed the connection later. But you weren't requiring them to do the construction of the looping.
Okay.
Right?
I thought they did.
It sounds something that Matt needs to get more.
Is that your understanding, Mike, or I can't tell if you're shaking your head or...
And I don't know whether I'm allowed to talk or not, so.
Yeah, you are.
Okay. So, I was trying to figure out how it changed, so looped through and connected to existing pipes.
Yeah.
Was consistent with what I was expecting, because that's what prevents the issues of around water and keeps the water moving through the system. And I guess what I am wondering is, where did the information come to say instead of looping it, it would instead be stubbed and not connected?
Yeah. I think we have to check. Yeah, right. I know. There's somebody. Oh, yes. Yeah. As I thought, right. That's what I thought, that, because it's exactly what you're saying in this minutes, but I thought something came from the neighbors after.
No, wanting that connection to occur?
That what?
Do you think a neighbor didn't want the connection
Yeah.
to occur?
Looping it through that roadway. Yeah, I mean, we'll put it back. I mean, that's part of the reason it's highlighted here. Kathy has it highlighted in the minutes, consistent with what you're saying.
I mean, there's a
yeah.
few things going on. So
Yeah.
both East Street and Lynn Street are unaccepted lanes. So they don't necessarily have public water mains on them.
Right.
They often will have what we call a spaghetti type connection. So it's a thin copper pipe in the dirt that goes to the house. And we think one of the abutting properties on Lynn Street has a water connection to the public water supply probably through one of these connections. So my whole point is, if it's only stubbed, it's not going to serve the purpose of looping water through the system.
Yeah.
It's only going to create a dead end.
There was a thing about future, yeah, but that's different. I think this whole paragraph I'm confused about, because accommodating future needs is different than the concept that you're describing. Because that language was from the water director about you stub it to accommodate future needs. In case you need to do it.
You're thinking of sewer line maybe, in case they ever bring common
don't
town
know.
sewer in, we want to.
Is stubbed on the parcel of that road?
Was
the water
from
department?
the water department.
Okay, well, and that's
Yeah,
what we should all be probably following.
No, but what I'm saying is, well, what is that?
This is from Matt.
Yeah, no, I know.
He did.
But I know what he wrote, but it's a different concept. From what you're saying, there's an infrastructure reason to it, whereas stubbing it to accommodate future needs is a totally different concept. So I just don't understand it, what it is that we're trying to.
I think we should be going with what the water department said.
Yeah, but it doesn't make sense what he said. It has to be rewritten because it doesn't.
What's that? Are you available?
If you read it without the stripes, it doesn't.
Isn't that a week from today?
It's not clear.
Yeah.
I mean, if we have to be done the 21st, we only have next
See,
week.
Captain, Matt Road, stuff to the
He didn't
parcel.
say stuff.
He didn't.
He said,
21st.
He said move, but he also
So are we
says
13, 14, 15,
Stop.
16?
he says stub at the western property.
Practically speaking, I'm looking at 14, 15,
I can do
16.
13, 14.
14 for you, Mission?
complex will be looped through the town-owned parcel
Let's do the
2
14,
Lynn
because
Street
that'll give him
and
2
connected to
business
D
days
Street
to
and on
revise.
Riverside Drive. This one shows
Do we think that's
complex
enough?
is not a dead end and has.
It's been a little-
another part
So
of
you
town.
push to the 15?
Is that from Matt? That's my understanding.
No, wait,
Not here.
no,
So
but it
it's
says
can we
at
do
the
16th
western
at like
property line
5
to
and do it
accommodate
before
future
So if we go to
seven?
the 16,
In the decision.
what if there's a change that?
Yeah, but I didn't make that up.
We'll have to condition it, and we'll say we
information in
approve
the
it
record,
subject to
like-
making this, and this edit.
That was the
Final
reason
edit.
for stubbing it.
Well, I don't know if we.
That's what he said we could do at this meeting, so I don't.
It's not, I mean, we
That
can
one.
revise
So
it.
we're at least looking
But
at
it-
either the 14th.
You see what I'm
or
saying?
16th.
I didn't make that up.
No, no,
It's going to be filed on Tuesday, the 21st.
Tuesday the 21st.
I'm completely unavailable the 20th. Like,
That won't be here.
I'm in California.
I mean, that's conditioned upon,
That's what my concern is, though, if we,
All right, so
if that's not enough
we need
time
more.
to get it back to us
We
by
just need to
Tuesday.
follow up with them.
sure, we can, but if it's just, but
Just, it would be approved. And just ask for one time to finalize the condition of a, yeah.
so I think that's, always get a scenario where we can just follow. But like, whatever language we use, and it's hard and bad. So, whatever. Okay. So what day do you think?
I was saying the 16th, we just meet at 5, have 2 hours, and finish it before the 7 o'clock goat, which I'm very excited about. Yeah, it's our first goat. It can be more fun than that.
What day is that?
It's a week from today.
So you want to come in early?
Yeah, because that's at 7, we'd come in at 5.
Ruin 2 nights,
Yeah, I was like, it's never rude to hang out with
Where
people.
are we on the document now?
So we're through, I think.
We got to turn to the email.
Hold on a minute.
Right.
Okay.
We're going to clarify 7C with the water director.
We'll clarify.
And maybe that whole thing about accommodate future town connections, which I didn't make up, isn't part of it.
Existing crosswalk, and wasn't there something about a light?
something like that.
I know you do, because I didn't make it up.
The crosswalk?
So it could
I
just
don't
be
recall a
that
light. I recall that it
he
was
was
like,
trying to
Like a
create a
traffic-
catch-all.
Like a blinking light?
no,
or
no, they're
something?
not on.
I'm just saying, it's
They're talking about
totally
sewer still.
separate concept.
No, just let's,
Could that be what they proposed in the beginning and then Matt suggested the looping?
let him clarify.
Can I
decide.
Have them shut off the fan.
Just let him decide.
Can we do that?
Go ahead, get it from the,
Jerry,
It's too late.
you can bring the,
can you kill the fan?
you can bring the water inspector to
Can you
the
kill the,
water.
AC
Be able to
fan?
drink. So just see if he wants to swallow.
Are you not cold?
Oh my God.
I'm like blue.
So Matt Martin
Sorry. Yeah.
went through several specific items that he had raised in an email. Matt attended all of the meetings and is a member of the board. Jerry, you've had a chance to look at all of his email points.
We covered a lot of them, didn't we?
Should we just go through them one by one? If that's all right with you, just really quickly. I think we've covered most of them. So the first one was a driveway sightline. Did the developer resolve whether Teresa's Prime will let them move the entrance sign our consultant recommended moving, but the developer had to talk to the owner, Mr. Yever, to get permission to move it. I'm trying to,
I don't recall that.
did we ever resolve that, Kathy, to your recollection?
No. Say it again?
I'm looking for guidance from afar
About the sign.
about this sign.
I know they submitted the signed plan.
It was moved?
Yeah,
Okay.
they showed a plan.
Okay, I was on one of the last plans.
Okay, so that is, so we can...
That's resolved.
No, okay, thank you. Voice from, I'm not supposed to be here. On another one, construction noise, North Reading Police Department submitted a letter back in December that said after initial construction noise complaints, 2 additional complaints would result in cease and desist. Should we include this in section B7D? I wrote on this, no. Let's see where,
Yeah.
don't presuppose it's going to happen until it happens. And there's no reason to condition it, let the police do their job. Thank you. Leave police work to the trained professionals. Blasting plan not included. This was brought up at a couple of meetings, but if a blasting is required, there should be reference to a blasting plan in coordination with police and fire. Should this be added into section B7? So it's an interesting point. Whether or not Jerry leave, you get a coat?
He was the measure.
Okay, cool, quick.
Blasting plans, I apologize, I'm not familiar with the usual.
A7 when?
He just asked if this should be added to section B effectively, or within the
I
body.
thought we
of
covered
B7.
that when they said there's typical requirements that need to be checked if blasting is.
All right, I think Jerry will be able to answer that when he comes back. Irrigation wells, there was a condition for no irrigation wells, but do we need to make this no quotation marks new irrigation wells since the golf course has a well on the property already?
That's separate, right? It has nothing
So
to do
the
with site.
existence of the current well, they were getting an easement, like they had
There was an easement to
they had
maintain the
counsel
well.
from one of the meetings who said that.
They were going to repair it, move it, and it was actually going to be better,
Okay.
but they have an easement
So-
for an irrigation well, yes.
Matt is just asking if we should include the term "no new irrigation wells" within the body of the
When it says no irrigation.
permit.
Because technically they would be moving the well, which would,
Yeah.
could be a new irrigation well, because they're moving the location of the, yeah.
But just put no, and new.
Yeah.
No new. Tree planting, section D9 outlines the buffer plantings for Lynn Street developer agreed to a 12-month warranty on these plantings with a site visit after 11 months. To confirm, we should add the warranty to section D9. So this speaks to, again, the final permitting, right? That those plantings are going to go in and...
Yeah, but Michelle wanted to move that to the certificate of occupancy, which we're doing.
Okay, so...
Do you want to add that? What are you saying?
My notes say the 12 months was guaranteed from the landscape company to the developer. The developer didn't necessarily agree to a hard and fast 12-month guarantee. It was so much as him saying he's paying for trees with the 12-month guarantee, or they're paying
And
for
he had
it.
no, yeah, and didn't have a problem checking it
He also
prior.
said he does a 11-month.
11-month check.
Check. Something like that.
So if you want to add the note to an 11-month check on the trees, like just,
But how, I don't know plantings as demonstrated by our time together, but if it's conditioned on the certificate of occupancy, they won't be able to satisfy the 11 months potentially if the trees aren't in, right? I don't think we can condition that if we want it part of the certificate of occupancy.
No, but you could add it as general.
Okay. I'm okay with that. But if you plant it right before you get your occupancy, you won't be able to come back in 11 months. I don't know when you plant trees.
Ask Jerry. Is there a way to come back 11 months after?
You can't, it just has to be a general condition, not
Yeah.
as part of the,
Yeah.
sorry, like George's suggestion.
His last one, pre-construction groundwater survey, not included. On January 22nd, Matt believed the developer agreed to a pre-construction/existing condition survey of the groundwater at 4 Lynn Street. They worried that the retaining wall may affect drainage and flood their property. He asked, is this something we'd consider making a condition specific to 4 Lynn Street because of the retaining wall?
So you addressed that earlier.
I thought we addressed that earlier.
Okay.
in
We're going
the-
to add something.
Yeah,
Okay, fair enough.
check
Is that what
what,
we decided?
yeah.
Well, that was for the well. He's talking more about groundwater, but I thought that was addressed in the meeting where the applicants, engineers pulled up a drawing and a map and basically confirmed that water's not going to flow uphill X number of feet, and I thought we
Yeah.
resolved that issue.
Yeah.
So you don't think there's anything that specifically should be designed towards, because they've made the representation that it won't be a problem, and it's set out on the project
It
plan?
was centered on the project.
So if there's a problem after the fact, it falls into all those others, which is just a question of enforcement,
Yeah.
right? Okay, thank
So
you.
then it was blasting to Jerry.
Jerry's office, there'd be a question of a blasting plan. I'll recite what Matt wrote. This was brought up at a couple of meetings, but if blasting is required, there should be a reference to a blasting plan in coordination with the police and fire. And Matt Martin asked if this should be added to section B7. So for purposes of construction protocols, blasting plans, are they just, they have to give you a schedule? What's the
They have to give
usual
me a full
problem?
plan. They also have to make sure that all the neighbors have been notified. They have to go perform inspections. Anybody has any wells, they want to make sure they check those. So the full blasting plan is, they have to.
So this is just standard,
Standard.
so there's no reason to add a condition because this is how it's
It's
going
all
to be
standardized. yeah.
standard practice.
I think we should add a condition.
You think you should?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think one helps with it too. That's
Yeah.
pretty important.
Say prior to approval of satisfactory
Yeah,
blasting
it's
plan
just something about what you would,
for the commissioner.
yeah.
So it's a safeguard. We're adding it mostly as a safeguard.
Well,
Just
it's
so it's
important because
noted.
they're not, they haven't really anticipated needing to blast them.
Okay.
Correct.
That's, I have another one that there's a whole thing going on about it being a substantial project change because they're doing blasting and neighbors are not happy. And so it is something we want as a condition, because if they have to do it, they need to address it with the building commissioner and make sure it's done in accordance with what the best practices are.
Okay. That's fine. I just wanted to differentiate between
Yeah.
being in standard operation.
Where would we think, Jerry, in the construction management part or prior to site work, right?
Yeah, I'll get back, excuse me, I'll get back to you on that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, when's the final draft required?
Speaking of getting back,
When's the final draft, yeah?
so here's a better question. The waivers. So we all have read through the waivers. I had a couple, but I think both of them had to do with, one that was submitted by the applicant, signage has been addressed, and the use of the driveway. Requirements for driveway separation and width, waived to allow a shared driveway with existing, so that's subject to the easement. This is just my own review. stormwater management bylaw to be applied in comprehensive permit process and waiver requested the extent required to allow stormwater management system as shown on the plans. I think that's all kind of catch-all. It's all going to run over to the conditions we're trying to put in for storm. There was a question about maximum building height. So this was always this question that, do we believe that North Reading Fire Department was fully apprised of the height of the building?
It sounds like they are able to continue to provide comments directly to George, is what I'm picking up from all of
Okay,
this back
so-
and forth.
The purposes of the revisions that you're going to be making, they're going to incorporate public safety issues that were raised and are now been clarified?
Yeah, they're being clarified, because I was kind of curious where,
Where they been?
yeah.
Okay, that's fine. I mean,
Because the
look,
stuff I've been working on with Danielle and Jerry are like,
so,
me clarifying language that I've already put in that was based on the record. It's not like, new comments, but.
I don't think there's going to be anything that, within them that are any different than any
Okay.
large building. So, but
Yeah.
again, there are things that as council we should address to public safety
Okay.
within the bounds of this entire.
Because
Or to be
there are
overturned.
certain, you can't require subsequent approvals, but there are certain things that are subject to somebody confirming, so maybe it's of that nature that he needs to, there's a certain standard review he needs
Right.
to enter.
And
He's not reducing a story or anything.
I didn't review any of the email because to me, it should go through you before it comes to me at this stage, but at the same time, public safety is owed to not only the community, but the people that are going to
Yeah, of
live here.
course.
So
Yeah.
I don't think, I think that's all.
Yeah. I very rarely see fire chiefs do any overreach, so I'm sure it's all fine, but I have to look at it.
Okay. I just wanted to make that clear for the record. Okay, I know we've been here for several hours, and so for purposes of continuance of the deliberation, today being the 9th, so working business days for you, George, we're looking at
As long as Jerry and Danielle can get back to me by Monday, I can have this new draft to you Monday.
I can't get that.
No.
I got too much going on right now.
Yeah.
okay.
Sorry. I'll do the best I can.
So
Maybe, yeah, because maybe if I talk to Danielle about it, because I don't think there's much really for you to do.
Well, Danielle
Certificate of occupancy.
Popley drafted some of the, she left out a few things that I wanted in here,
Oh, yeah,
but we just,
yeah.
So I was talking within the board while.
let me get it to you, we'll work together on it and get it to you by Monday.
I mean, do your best.
Yeah.
I'll work on my part by Monday, and then I can fill in yours. How about Tuesday?
Tuesday works, because I wish this was the only thing I had.
Yeah, I
It's
know
not.
the feeling. Yeah, Tuesday we can have a draft back.
That's not like-
Is that enough time, or should we meet Thursday and give it a full week?
Meet when?
So
Thursday?
we're meeting on Thursday for our regular business, but the board is available to come in earlier in order to meet. Our meeting on Thursday, the 16th, is at 7 PM. Michelle and Brendan and I can be here at 5, or, at 5, or between 5 and 7. The sooner we receive the revisions, the sooner we'll have a chance to review them. We could direct questions directly back and forth.
Yeah, I think if we get it Tuesday, we all actually sit for some time and then final vote Thursday.
Yeah.
And we'll get Siri working on your.
I can't believe that.
So,
I mean, is Siri an app, or I thought it just comes out of your phone?
I'm
It's
not,
built into your phone. If it's a new phone, you have to set up.
Through the app?
Siri, I mean,
we'll set you up before you leave here.
No, but,
we're going to get you on Waze. You don't need Siri.
no, just Siri is good. Breadcrumbs.
I'll find you a map, we must have one. We'll take it down off the wall and give it to you.
No, it's
we sell a lot of, we sell a lot of cookies in our house. Girl Scout town.
decision by Tuesday and then.
Thursday at 5?
Okay.
So what date would be the final?
Thursday, next Thursday.
Next Thursday?
The deliberations are going to be continued until Thursday, April 16th
At 5 o'clock.
at 5 PM in this room.
Kathy, don't we have a ZBA meeting?
At 7.
7
At
p.m.
7.
At 7.
This is the regular business.
5 and then 7.
Yep,
5 for this, 7 for that.
Okay.
which is what I thought today was. Really got that wrong.
Valerie, are you available at that time?
Yep.
I can pull my weight. I can stay till 7.
Okay.
You get it. You
Want to
get
make
it.
a motion?
I'm going to bring a motion to continue the deliberations on the matter regarding 20 Elm Street. Can I get a second?
Brendan Riley, second.
All in favor of continuing?
Brendan Riley, aye.
Aye.
Bob Green, aye. For purposes of the continuance, will be Thursday, April 16th, Town Hall, Room 14, at 5 PM. I'd just like to bring a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Brendan Riley, aye.
Bob Green, aye. Michelle Bodian, thank you.